Out of the gates and ready to go. OutKick 360 is underway from 6th and Peabody. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine, all over the place, including behind us, around us, Chad.
We're
all
swimming in moonshine and Yeehaw Beer in this facility.
That's right.
It's everywhere. Can't avoid it.
Crew's all here, except for PK, who is enjoying the Titans bye week with family today and tomorrow. Tomorrow we are live in Knoxville for the biggest game of the college football weekend. And, Chad, you said it right, the biggest game of the college football season to this point. Tennessee and Alabama on Saturday. We'll preview all of that over the next 2 days. Really excited to be joined by Shaun Alexander, Crimson Tide great, former offensive MVP, rushing title holder, rushing king in 2005, MVP over Peyton Manning that season. We'll get all the details from him on the Crimson Tide and Vols. That's coming up in about 15 minutes from now. Looking forward to that. Also, Armando Salguero and McKenry covering all things Major League Baseball. We will definitely talk Braves. Chad, congratulations. Your Bravos. Evening the series there.
They had to get it, Hutton, and they made it happen against Zach Wheeler, who they've had no success against. Had a whip under 1 coming into that game against the Braves. And they broke through in the 6th inning in a scoreless game for 3 and never looked back. 3-0 win. So it's fun now because it makes it a series as they go to Philly in what's going to be a raucous atmosphere for a Phillies team that has not been in the postseason in 11 years.
McKenry knows both of these franchises well. Talked to him last night. He said, literally, ask me anything you want on the Braves and Phillies. I'm ready to go. Yankees postponed until tomorrow. They're not going to play again until Friday. Advantage Guardians? We'll ask that question as well. Looking forward to that. Padres beat the Dodgers, too. My Padres. I'm all on board with San Diego.
That was a fun game to watch late last night, Padres and Dodgers. I mean, you're reminded in a win like that, that Padres team is super loaded. Just like the Dodgers. Dodgers are more loaded and the better team and should win that series. But even with that out Tatis Jr., that's still a very talented Padres team.
We've got Thursday Night Football, Washington taking on Chicago. Look, last week, terrible game. And I came in on Friday and I said, guys, the quarterback play is what kept me watching this. As bad as it was Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan. Tonight, Justin Fields, who barely passes for 10 attempts in a game, 10 completions in a game, and Carson Wentz, who could be on alert, looking over his shoulder at some of the backup options they have because things have not gone well with just their one-win start. Carson Wentz, though, the note here, 6-0 on Thursdays throughout his NFL career, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on Thursday nights, on short weeks.
It's probably because they just throw away whatever team he's on. The game they play on Thursdays against the worst opponent on the schedule.
Tonight?
Yeah, so he's really feasted on the bottom of the league would be my guess. I'd like to see if he's got one big win on Thursday Night Football against a team that was good and not just stacking up a bunch of bad wins. And hey, Carson Wentz isn't worried about anything. He said it yesterday in response to Ron Rivera's apology. I'm super confident. He laughed it up and, hey, coach apologized. We're good. I'm very confident that I'm the guy here in Washington. Nothing to see here, guys. No chance at all of me being benched. I'm Carson Wentz. I'm here for the long haul. I know Commanders fans are thrilled with that.
Davey Hudson does great work. He passed this on to us. Draft picks that Carson Wentz has been traded for throughout his career. You ready for this?
Yes.
2016, 3 picks. A first round, number 8 overall. Third round, number 77. Fourth round, number 100 overall. That was the 2016 because they had to go get him. You've got 2017, a first overall. In 2018, you have the second round overall in 2018. And then 2021,
64th overall second round pick.
Yes, and an 84th overall third round pick in 2021. And then this past year with Washington for 2022 with Indy, you've got a first round pick, which was number 16, a second round swap, and then a third round pick in this past year, 2023, coming up for Washington to get him, number 67, a third-round pick overall through Spotrac. That is a ton of picks for a very baseline, at best, marginal average QB. The one big year where all of you had Winston and Mariota, and then you had Wentz right after that, and the talk was, did those teams draft too early, a year too early, did they really need Wentz? And how quickly that dissipated.
Well,
he had that great season.
You had mentioned earlier, though, which is interesting, Hutton, that last week we wallowed in the misery of that game, and we stayed wallowing in the misery of that game because there was legitimate NFL star power failing in that game.
Yeah, because one team was going to at least claim that they were back on track regardless of how it ended.
Well, even if it's not, it's one thing. You don't stick around to watch two bad quarterbacks who've always been bad. Or, Carson Wentz was average to above at one point in his career. He had a moment with Philly where he was definitely an above-average quarterback. But these are two guys who were great for long stretches of their career a week ago in Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson. So we stick around of the novelty of watching two formerly great quarterbacks be terrible in the same game, and maybe we stick with the game longer. I don't know if I'm sticking with the game as long tonight.
No.
If it's
like
just
that.
Two bad quarterbacks that, we already knew they're really bad quarterbacks, so who cares? If Bears Commanders resembles Colts Broncos from a week ago, people aren't going to stick with it as long because there's no novelty of watching formerly good quarterbacks be bad. These are just two bad quarterbacks right now.
Davey,
at this point in their career.
Am I right in thinking that the Bears are on Monday night next week? They have another primetime game coming up. It's all of the talk about the Broncos. The Broncos have a Monday night game coming up as well. The bad teams. Here are the Bears with a chance to get to 500. A bit of a surprise at this point. And you've got their offensive coordinator not really saying that we've seen Justin Fields put in the best situations with how they're using him. They're not going that far, and at least they're telling us the truth with that. It's interesting that they could get to that level going into mid-October, and no one thinks they're any good. But here they are with a chance to get to 500 with a win over Washington.
And I think more than anything, it's a chance to just further bury another NFC opponent if you're the Bears. I mean, getting to that level right now, this point in their season, is important, but you also start to sprinkle a little more dirt on the grave of the Commanders with a win tonight and hold them at one win on the season, which would be important. Because these are two teams that we have our NFL playoff elimination. I know Paul has both eliminated. I have the Commanders eliminated.
I don't have the Bears
as of now.
yet.
I don't have the Bears yet either. But at best, going into the season, you'd say maybe they'll fight for that 7th spot and be an 8, 9, 10 type team in the NFC and could fight for that last playoff spot.
It's also, the organization would never say this. You have the trade deadline coming up November 1st. And Chicago has a couple of pieces that would be highly sought after, especially out west. They've got a couple of former Rams that would make sense for the Rams, and they go all in. But if you're in contention, you can't trade your assets for picks, but you also know you're really not that good enough to compete, and you need to build around your young quarterback. So you can't be buyers or sellers at that point. It's a tough spot to be in. And the trade deadline has been much more active in recent seasons than what we've given it credit for. We've always downplayed it. In the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of movement there. Khalil Mack comes to mind and others. The Bears have been sellers in the past, and now they're not the seller of the league, at least not yet. If Washington wins tonight, the Bears could be.
Yeah, I'm really rooting for a Bears win just because I don't want to hear about Washington anymore and would like them to stay at one win and just continue that burial process of that team. But a story we're going to get to later.
Yeah, we're going to hear about the Washington Commanders.
We're going to hear about Washington because their owner's not ready to get buried just yet because he's claiming he has receipts. And he's going to expose a lot of owners across the NFL and Roger Goodell and the NFL themselves. He could expose them.
The fraternity of owners. That's why they don't vote anyone out. Dan Snyder saying that he's got plenty of dirt. We'll go through the headlines coming up later in the show. When we come back, though, Shaun Alexander is going to join us. Crimson Tide great, NFL great, joining us on OutKick 360. First, though, we are excited to partner with Aurora Nutriscience, a trusted partner that keeps us at OutKick 360 mentally sharp and healthy. Aurora delivers your supplements where you need them the most, your body. You can see VitalLifeScience.com for all of the options with their great supplements. VidaLifeScience.com is the website. 15% off. You get that discount as an OutKick 360 season ticket holder. Just type in OutKick 360 with the code there at checkout. Typical pills, capsules, not well absorbed. In fact, most are only absorbed in small, very small amounts. But your digestive system breaks these pills down until there's little left that you're actually going to benefit from. But here's Aurora, unique cutting-edge nutritional and absorbable supplements encapsulated in liposomes, and that ensures greater absorption in the body's bloodstream. I use the vitamin C, the vitamin D3, glutathione, and more. Plenty of more options to choose from. VitaLifeScience.com, VIDA Lifescience.com is the website. 15% off with the code OutKick360 at VitaLifeScience.com.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Back in the day, before the explosion of I got to have this, Clemson built this, so Alabama's building this, Indiana, we got to have the world's biggest weight room. Purdue, we got to be bigger than Indiana. You know, before the locker room wars, the arms race of college sports, the theory used to be this, at least at Indiana University men's basketball. The theory at Indiana University men's basketball back in the day when they were winning championships was, look, we want you to be comfortable here. We're going to give you the best health care. We're going to give you the best weights. We're going to give you all that. But we don't want you hanging around the locker room. If you're coming to work, come to work. If you're coming to practice, that's work. Go out, get on the floor, get your workout in. Hey, we got a great training table for you. Go home, you're done. I think you will 1,000% tonight see a good football game. I do. Last week was a comedy of errors, both in terms of execution and in terms of participation. I don't think you're going to see that tonight. I think Justin Fields is getting better. And I'll be honest with you, when you look at quarterbacks across the league, according to the numbers, the fourth best quarterback is Carson Wentz. The one thing I wanted to ask Mike, and I should have, was why is it so easy to bash Carson Wentz? Like, it's just easy. His coach, we talked about it, had to walk back comments. All right. What? It's gotten so freaking easy to just simply say, it's Carson Wentz being Carson Wentz. The dude is throwing for a ton of yards. 9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Hey guys, it's Tomi. You can follow me on all my social media platforms at Tomi Lahren. And in case you missed my latest episode, here is what you missed. Big tech colludes with big government and big pharma and big BS to push leftist-friendly narratives. No duh, we know this. It's a tale as old as, well, the creation of social media. But the latest brazen and then apologetic offender is PayPal. Over the weekend, the company released its new acceptable use policy set to take effect on November 3rd, and it came with a not-so-thinly veiled threat update that stated users would be penalized for the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation or present a risk to user safety or well-being. And those in violation will be slapped with a $2,500 fine that will be taken directly from their PayPal account. Come again, PayPal? Do they really threaten to dip into the accounts of users if they, the self-appointed wardens of truth, fact, and science, deem certain content to be misinformation? Yeah, they sure as hell did. I've been spending the last several days of my shows, honestly, the last months of my shows, talking about big tech and talking about how they censor vaccine critical information, how they censor conservative voices, they censor Donald Trump, people that they just quite frankly don't like. What boggles my mind is that they tell us that they can't get rid of the child porn on the internet. They can't get rid of that. You can get rid of all the COVID misinformation, somebody being critical or explaining a very real world situation where they had a vaccine side effect. That's deemed bad for the public well-being. No. But they're telling us they really can't cleanse all this filth from the internet?
They can. So they hide it under the guise of privacy and encryption, right? And they spend millions, if not billions of dollars lobbying Congress to protect the privacy of people. Meanwhile, they can see everything that we say. They know everything that we do. Every single thing that we think, we look at, we Google, we search is exploited and sold for advertisements and dollars. They know everything that we do. They even know your eye movement as you look at the phone and what makes you pay attention.
You guys know I always back the Blues, so tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern as I sit down with the founder and CEO of Street Cop Training, and you don't want to miss this.
OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick Network with Chad Withrow. I'm Jonathan Hutton. PK back with us next week. Got Alabama and Tennessee this weekend. We have a Crimson Tide legend with us as we continue with our college football preview. NFL MVP, and he's headed to the Seahawks Ring of Honor this Sunday. Shaun Alexander joins us. First visit since our chat with you, Shaun, on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. Great to have you back, man.
Yeah, my Nashville brothers.
Here we
How
are.
y'all doing?
We are fantastic. Congratulations on the accolades and the honor from the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. And hopefully, we no rooting interest here. Hopefully we have a great college game on the front end of everything that's taking place on Sunday whenever we're in Knoxville tomorrow and Saturday.
I mean, I'm hoping that I enjoy it from the very but some of my friends are already giving me jabs like, man, the Big Orange can mess up weekend already, and I hope that.
Shaun Alexander with us, and we're going to reconnect with Shaun briefly in just a moment there. But Chad, I'm eager to get his take on the Crimson Tide, their dominance. Even when they don't play well, they win. 4 turnovers last weekend, missed 2 field goals. They still win that game. A&M had a chance, but they still win that game. Meanwhile, Tennessee last year just needed a stop, and they got a couple stops. But then Bama stopped the Tennessee offense at midfield in the fourth quarter, and then it became a rout.
Yeah, Tennessee's really had one game this year they have not played well. That was against Pitt, and they won.
Right.
In a game on the road,
that's
right?
Right.
I don't think they played up to their standard, and they won the game. So good teams, great teams find a way to win when they don't play well. Alabama has not played well more than Tennessee against Texas and against Texas A&M. But I'm also looking at this Alabama team thinking, when are they going to have that vintage Bama performance that is going to happen at some point this season?
Which we have not seen since we were in Atlanta watching them play Georgia.
Will Anderson's going to take over. Bryce Young's going to get the passing game going. The new receivers are all going to kick in at once.
Yeah.
And they're going to throttle someone. Is that this Saturday? I don't think so, because I think Tennessee's offense is going to make it very difficult for anyone to just kill them on the field. But you're going to get that vintage Bama performance at some point.
I know Shaun can see. Shaun, you're frozen, so I'm just making sure from our end of things that we'll go back to you in just a moment. One of his final games, I believe, of the 2005 season was at Nissan Stadium against the Titans. It was the final home game for the Titans that year, and that was his 2,000-yard season, his MVP season, completely dominant on the field that year from top to bottom, like week 1 to the final week of the season, where he was in the zone the entire year. We've seen it from Derrick Henry. We've seen it from Chris Johnson here. Alexander was doing it first. He was 0 for 4 against Tennessee.
It's very odd having a Bama guy on that has not had any success against Tennessee. It was a bygone era. And he had a lot of success in college, and he had those Bama teams had some success while he was there too. But this was just in that time where it was in the Tennessee season of life where they were on the big streak against Alabama during that time period.
Chad, what's the vibe you have on Bryce Young and his availability and Cedric Tillman on the flip side for the Vols offense?
We can only go by what both coaches have said about each situation and kind of read the tea leaves on what they're saying. Nick Saban has said that it's more of a pain tolerance issue, and that if you can handle the pain, then he's going to be able to play, and there's no risk of really complicating that injury that he has in his non-throwing shoulder. That leads me to believe he's going to play against Tennessee. Cedric Tillman, on the other hand, all signs have been pointing to, even early this week, Josh Heupel saying he got that tightrope surgery done to try to get back in time for a game like this. You're thinking, okay, this should be the week they've been targeting all along. It's still a really quick recovery from that surgery, even going into this week. And then Josh Heupel comes back and says Cedric Tillman will only play if he's 100%. And that leads me to believe that he's not playing.
Yeah,
in this
and
game.
it's not. You don't want to further the recovery process for either guy. Right, so that's what's interesting to me with the injuries. What does Saban do with Bryce Young at 85% throwing the football? what does that do to the game plan of Alabama?
Well,
Right?
even at
For a guy who
85%, it makes them the passing attack. From a game plan standpoint, it brings them back to the team they want to be with Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback.
But I wonder, does it lead to maybe an underthrow if it's a pain tolerance that, you know what I mean? Like, how does it impact the actual game to what they're able to do explosive play-wise? Because we know Tennessee hits them.
Well, and I think from a Cedric Tillman standpoint for Tennessee, you mentioned not rushing it back because what you want is for him to be 100% healed to where this isn't a 70% Cedric Tillman the rest of the way. You want him as close to 100% the rest of the way whenever he starts playing again. Maybe it's the last month of the season.
Yeah.
But you want him at the last month of the season and not have this recurring problem.
Shaun Alexander joins us again by phone. Shaun, what does Tennessee and Alabama mean to you? What do you think of in terms of this rivalry?
Well, I mean, the rivalry itself is always a great game. You always think that Auburn is the school that we at Alabama hate, and Tennessee and LSU are the neighbor kids that we get along with some. That'd be LSU. Get along with a little less. That'd be Tennessee. But we have a little bit of respect that we always want to win. And, I have a great strong dislike with Tennessee because I have the walk of shame that I have to carry with never beating them. So that's one. And then, the fact that, we play on my senior year and get tackled, guy rolls up my ankle, and they pretty much took my Heisman from me. So there's nothing good I really want to see out of Tennessee, except us really pummeling them. But that's what makes the game fun. They are finally at a place where their confidence is high and they're playing great football. And Alabama, we love that about them because we like to beat them when they're confident, way better than beating them when they feel like they don't have a shot. And so this makes great football. We love it.
I like the way you describe that, Shaun, because I look at Tennessee and Alabama as kind of this old money SEC programs where there is a begrudging respect between the two. I went to Tennessee. I hate Florida. There's nothing redeeming about Florida to me, but I respect Alabama. Even if I was in school at a time when Tennessee was winning, they haven't won in 15 years now against Alabama, but there's still at least a little bit of respect between those two programs because of that rich history. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. The winning over Tennessee, whether they are high or not, it still means a lot to us. And everybody can get into, Alabama's always winning, and there's no no, not them guys in the locker room. This Tennessee game means a lot, and we are going to play like that, and they are going to play like that, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Shaun Alexander, our guest on OutKick 360. Ring of Honor this Sunday, Shaun. I saw this. I'm thinking, man, I would have already assumed you were there. 2005 MVP, one of the greats for the franchise. Congratulations on this. And, man, what a turn of events from an offseason where there was a franchise that was looked at of not doing very much at quarterback. Now Geno Smith is among the top athletes right now playing quarterback in the league.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing to watch Geno play and play such a high level. So proud of him. I think, like anybody else, you go in hoping that he plays well, but not really expecting too much. But he's played lights out, and it's been wonderful to watch him mature. It's been really cool to see him persevere through, just from being a starter with the Jets to being replaced, to being back up to some great quarterbacks, to finally getting to Seattle. And you're like, well, let's see what happens. And him playing the way he's playing, it's been pretty awesome.
What comes to mind when you think of your Seahawks career? Is it 2005? And I mean, you were in the zone the entire season. Some guys get into the zone for 4 or 5 weeks. They're in that groove. You did not miss a beat that entire year.
Yeah, honestly, it's hard to say. Like, as humble, let me start like this. As humble as I can say it, that 5-year run was pretty amazing. We brought in Steve Hutchinson. We brought in a Jeremy Stevens, a passing threat as a tight end, and then we brought in Hasselbeck, and we literally we kind of created a run pass check system and a run to run system with Bob Ingram coming, who's the offensive coordinator of Wisconsin. He was the slot guy, And we've kind of watched everybody try to use the slot the way we've used it, especially in New England, ever since then. We started that thing in '02, and it just went run. And that run we had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I think we won a division 4 years in a row. Went to playoffs 5. And my run of 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns was just amazing. So that whole, but it flashes by like going from high school to college or college to finish it. It flashed by so quick, but the run was just amazing. And to cap off that '05 season the way we did, it was wonderful. Everything just kind of fell into place correctly, and the right teams were played against, and the whole nine. It was pretty awesome.
Well, we saw Derrick Henry rush for 2,000 a couple seasons ago. Jonathan Taylor was getting some accolades in November of last year, but it tailed off because MVP is a quarterback award. In 2005, though, you beat out Tom Brady and Peyton Manning for most valuable player in the NFL. Can a running back today, Shaun, win MVP in the NFL?
Well, LaDainian and I were the last two. I think, did Adrian win it? I think maybe the three of us were the last three to win it. And it takes like a lot of yards, a bunch of touchdowns, and then the right wins. Like you're playing against Peyton Manning. We played Peyton in the second to last game of the season, and we break the run. We scored a touchdown, and then they put me back in the game to get a 27th touchdown, and everybody just remembers, they beat the Colts. And we were both in similar situations where I had our playoffs locked up, but it takes those kind of games, and it just the right games have to be played at the right time. And usually a running back or running offense has to beat a passing the other quarterback that would be in the contentions, and it just has to fall right. It's much harder for a running back. He needs stats, he needs touchdowns, and he has to have the win. And all those things can happen, and you could still not beat the right team, and they'll give it to the quarterback. So it's a little bit hard to get, and it'd take a pretty amazing moment for it to happen again.
When you say a certain team from a certain era, most of the time in the NFL, there's one player that'll come to mind with that era. And your era, the Seahawks, if you say that, they'll say Shaun Alexander. Now, if you say some of the best fans in the NFL, certain fan bases immediately come to mind, and loud environments and all of those things. I feel like when you were playing in Seattle, that wasn't necessarily the reputation for the Seahawks fan base. Maybe it was underrated, but then shortly after you were there, you started to hear a lot more about Seahawks fans and that environment.
Decibels.
So what was your experience like playing in Seattle in front of Seahawks fans?
Well, a couple of things happened. I get there and they blew up the Kingdome.
Yep.
So by the time I got there, there's no stadium. So we're playing at the UW Husky Stadium, University of Washington, for my first 2 years. Not the starter. I think we went 6-10 my first year, and maybe 10-6 the second year, something like that. Maybe 9-7, and we were the last team in the playoffs. They were known to be average. And, me coming from a high school that was ranked nationally, and then being the player of the year, and then going to Alabama, which always says what it is, and being All-American, and then going to Seattle, it was like a culture shock to me to see a program like that. And, Coach Holmgren, you got to give credit. He drafted the right guys. He let our personalities be what they were. Like, we're not losing, and we're going to get rid of guys that can't handle that kind of intensity and that kind of desire to win. And it took us a little bit of time, and we changed the culture. So by the time we're into my third year and I'm the guy, and we've got our the way we're going to play down, it was hard to beat us. We ran the ball, we stopped the run, we had got receivers that could make plays when they needed. Halfback would scramble around and make a big throw in the fourth quarter, and the crowd was just all in it. And then we started winning, and so then you see division champs, playoff wins, Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden, they're no longer just cheering because they're the team in the city. They're cheering because now they're cheering for champions, division champs, conference champs. This team goes to Super Bowl any year, and we were always in the hunt for it just about my whole time. And And so when we all get too old to come play no more, Holmgren retires. Pete Carroll comes in, and he goes and drafts Russell and Bobby Wagner. And so now you've got 2-decade captains on both your offense and your defense. And go grab that great secondary, grab some more, go trade for Marshawn, you know what I mean? And now they've built it back up. And the one thing that Russ and Marshawn always said was it was already ready to go be a championship team. And it was much harder for us to climb that hill when, people used to fly to Seattle, go get some good seafood, go see the Space Needle, and then win a football game. And by the time we were finished, they were like, man, it's going to be a war. And we're like, you better believe it. So it was great to change the culture to not just playing football, but playing winning football. And the crowd really jumped into it. So we love the 12s.
Shaun Alexander, our guest on OutKick 360.
So, Shaun, I'm asking this next question for Colin Warner, who's our radio engineer and resident Notre Dame guy. You played at a great program in the state of Kentucky, and I felt like recruiting-wise you were kind of in the middle, the start of the Midwest and the start of the South, and you were either going to go deep South or Michigan or possibly even Notre Dame, and you may have been one of the only star football players that would have gone to a program partly based on a member of the marching band. Is this correct with your interest in Notre Dame?
That is right. My older brother, Duran, he's 1 year older than me. He went to the University of Notre Dame and played in the marching band. And it was funny. I was doing an event with Verizon, and I told somebody, my brother played in the marching band, and I told him who it was. I said, Duran Alexander, we still play his cadences. And I was like, that would only make sense to us band people. So very proud little brother of one who played in the Notre Dame marching band, and I almost went there, and it was a really fun recruiting. And I remember Lou Holtz walking by me and Mr. Ohio and Mr. West Virginia. I was Mr. Kentucky, and the three of us would go to the same games before there was cell phones, right? We were right on the verge of cell phones, so we were like, hey, you going to this game? No, I'm gonna go to this one. Okay, yeah, and that's kind of how we talked. Lou Holtz walked to us and said, Y'all three come here, we'll win a national championship 4 years in a row. They're like, oh man, you guys must be pretty good. Yeah, what's your name? You're Mr. West Virginia? Yeah, what's your name? Randy Moss. Oh, okay, yeah, Randy, I'll keep you in mind. Hey, what's your name? Mr. Ohio? Oh, Charles Woodson. Okay, great. So there was the three of us that was going around to all the same games. And, we looked up, and I remember Charles being the first one saying, I think I'm going to go to Michigan. I was like, yeah, I was thinking that too. Randy's like, no, I think I'm going to go to Notre Dame. And I went up in a blizzard at Michigan, and then went to Notre Dame. I went to Notre Dame first, then went to a blizzard up in Michigan. And I just started thinking, gosh, I'd rather just go somewhere warm. And I went to Alabama next and met Gene Stallings and was like, yep, here I'll go, going to Bama. That's how it happened.
Shaun Alexander, our guest. Give us your prediction for this weekend, Shaun, Tennessee and Bama.
Man, I've been so impressed with Heupel and that offense. I feel like they will score points. So I'm going to give them about 28-31. I'm going to give them about 31. Let's see, I'll give us about 41. So I feel like it's going to be like 31-41, Bama.
It's very similar to what Chad was saying.
Yeah,
earlier this
I think
week.
my pick was 38-30 Bama. So I'm right in line with you. It comes down to Bryce Young to me, Shaun. I mean, that's the key to this game. If he plays, I think Bama wins. If he doesn't, I think they're in trouble in this game.
We're not even going to talk about that. No, I do hear he's going to play. If he doesn't, it's going to be hard because Tennessee's defense is a good defense, and so they will play. And if you can make it one dimensional, I mean, the SEC defenses and one dimensional offenses don't go together, So hopefully it goes the way we want it. If he doesn't play, we have so much confidence that the players will step up because the game means so much that they'll make the plays that's needed. But scoring is going to have to go way down and a lot more clock management if he doesn't.
Shaun, final thing on the way out. Back in Seattle this weekend, I know Rashad Penny is hurt. Unfortunately, again, he's done for the year. Kenneth Walker III, though, has an opportunity. Have you had a chance to meet or chat with him, and what do you expect from the rookie?
Yeah, I congratulate him for coming to the team, and very explosive. Gosh, he he plays with the idea of making a big play every single carry, and that becomes pretty exciting. I think he's special, and hopefully he can stay healthy. But I love Rashad Penny too. But seeing those two guys, they've got some great running backs there that hopefully they can keep both under contract and can play for a long time. But I think that I think Kenneth is going to be pretty special, and hopefully he has a great game Sunday.
Hey man, like we said in LA, you're welcome to Nashville anytime to come link up and hang out here. Next time you do that, please let us know. We'd love to hang out, and you're always great to come on the show. We appreciate you, man. Congratulations on the Ring of Honor induction this weekend.
Well deserved.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right, there's Shaun Alexander, one of the best. Crimson Tide, NFL MVP, 2005. And, I mean, imagine a running back right now, Chad, beating out Manning, Brady, Mahomes, Josh Allen. He was able to do that.
How about the story about him, Randy Moss, and Charles Woodson being buddies in the recruiting process?
I've heard some great Randy Moss recruiting stories.
Lou Holtz may have been correct in his assessment that they would have won multiple national championships if all three linked up in South Bend.
So Joey Kent, speaking of, we'll tie in Alabama here. Joey Kent once told me the recruiting story. He hosted Randy Moss on campus when Randy was making the visits through Knoxville. And I confirmed all this through Philip Fulmer, who I saw this past April. And all Randy wanted to do, because they had everything set up, all Randy wanted to do was swim. That's it. He wanted to go and swim.
In the indoor pool.
Go meet the players.
Winter, I think,
go meet the players. Hey, you want to go hang out at this fraternity house? You want to go to this bar? You go hang out with all the players. We're going to be here hanging out at this bar. We're going to be here after practice. No, man, I just want to go swim. And so he just went and just swam laps on that Friday afternoon whenever he got into town, went to the game on Saturday, and then, probably swam some more. That was Randy Moss. Not
what you necessarily think about Randy Moss's time as a recruit visiting campuses.
Straight swimming.
There you go. Every time I hear that story, it's all I think about when I hear Randy Moss now is that Joey Kent story about him only wanting to go swim.
And I think Joey just sat there and watched him swim. Like he was the chaperone for the weekend. You know how serious Joey takes everything.
This is also pre-cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
This era, so I'm laughing at Joey having to just sit in a chair and watch him swim laps, not even on his phone while he's doing it, texting someone else, just sitting there watching him.
Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. Coming up, we'll hit some more headlines. We will get into what's going on in Washington with Daniel Snyder's comments about ownership and Roger Goodell and others saying he's got dirt on them and dropping some off-color language. We'll dive in on that, where I don't know if we agree or not here on Dan Snyder and the leverage that he may or may not possess with the comments that have been floated out there. We'll get into that. Plus, we will hit the headlines with all things Major League Baseball postseason. We've got Michael McKenry coming up in about 20 minutes. Armando Salguero will help us preview Thursday Night Football and all of Week 6. Stay tuned. A lot more coming on OutKick 360.
Hey, I'm David Hookstead, host of American Joyride, a podcast where we shine a spotlight on patriotism and American exceptionalism. Take a look.
This is something, again, that I really like to ask military guys because I feel like they have unique perspectives, sometimes that surprise people. But most importantly, in my opinion, anyone who's sacrificed on any level tends to be very grateful or more grateful than just your average person. So when you hear people maybe say that America is a terrible place or that we're an evil country full of evil people, do you kind of cringe when you hear that? Like, what's your reaction when you turn on the news and it's just nonstop negativity around the clock about how awful this place is?
Well, I actually don't turn on the news anymore because of that.
Smart.
It's one, not true. And it's unbelievably toxic how that mindset and hearing it all the time. Even if one, you believe it, then you go around believing that about your own nation all the time. Like, that's a horrible way to feel about who you is. They're not leaving, right? They're not finding a more noble country to go to. They're just staying here and they're sulking and they're spreading this horrible idea about how shameful we should all feel all the time. And I don't want to live that way. But I don't believe it. And so listening to it just pisses me off. I don't think that anyone is really able to say that with a straight face unless they have paid no attention to world history.
Right.
Like it takes a real level of ignorance of history to say that America is unique in its cruelty. Like it's just absurd. It's really we're not void of it, but we are certainly not unique in it. I went on a bender around the time I went to Naked and Afraid because I felt like I could use these books to harness a better perspective and get me through the suffering that I anticipated. And they were recommendations by Jordan Peterson, who I like to listen to a lot of the things he says. He's a very interesting person as well. But I read the Gulag Archipelago. I read Mao's Famine, Unit 731.
The old Japanese torture unit.
Oh yeah, I read the making of, what was it? It was another German book about the psychology of how they got these German policemen to do murders who were just regular cops.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. And it's about how like none of them opted out of it. Like they just all were okay. I know the book you're referring to.
Yeah, man. And sort of the peer pressure involved, or the, how that happens. I read all of those books, and I'll be honest, it probably took me 3 or 4 months to get over them. Like Unit 731 with the Japanese torture camps was specifically difficult. The rape of Nanking, that was another one. Holy hell. Like, how could you look at America and honestly believe, like, yes, we had slavery, but slavery was brought here because it was everywhere else, right? Like, this was the place everyone was going. We didn't invent it here, but we did get rid of it. And we killed a whole lot of people to do that. And I think that the people that say that, one, are either trying to be trendy and different, and they just don't understand what the hell they're saying.
Make sure to catch every single episode of American Joyride at OutKick.com.
OutKick 360 rolls on. Dan Snyder, owner of the Washington Commanders, says he's got dirt on NFL
receipts.
ownership
He's got
and
those
the
receipts.
NFL and Roger Goodell, and that's why the quote is, "They can't F with me." The report from ESPN has quoted Daniel Snyder saying this to confidants about other NFL owners and the league as a whole. And while he's not wrong, it's not because of what the immediate reaction would be with this. Like, it's not because he's somehow empowered, just like all these owners are, or Roger Goodell can't do anything because technically Snyder's his boss. Chad, I don't know where you come down on this. I think it's because they're not going, the group at large is not going to F with him until he F's with them. Does that make sense? With the money. So it's not the investigation of improper work environment or anything. To me, it's about if it's true, then they're being investigated for this, skimming money off the top before splitting the revenue with other ownership. That's where things, tend to go a bit off track with how owners tend to vote when it comes to this policy. I would also say they would also tend to vote in the same line of thinking here, meaning that Snyder's not going to be ousted, because certain owners don't want to be next. I don't think they're worried about Snyder ratting them out on anything. I think they're worried about setting a precedent to where, well, if Snyder's outed for this and word gets out on what he knows, I'm outed for this. So it's not as much litigation as it is facts and precedent being set, and they don't want to set that precedent.
I love the description in the ESPN report of people that know Snyder that says he's got a whiskey in one hand, a cigar in the other, and he's pacing around his private residence, but he's always going on these rants about how he's had private investigators hired, and he knows all this stuff on Roger Goodell, that he's got dirt on him. He's got dirt on other owners, that the NFL is the mafia, and that he could take down the entire organization. It's basically organized crime is what he's claiming. And I start thinking, how much of this do I believe? Do I believe that NFL owners have skeletons in their closet? Of course. Most human beings do, especially billionaires. They've got something going on, a lot of them, that I'm sure they don't want exposed. But I keep coming back to this one thing. There's a quote where Daniel Snyder is claiming there's a lot of unlikability with NFL owners across the league. And then some NFL owner anonymously was quoted as saying, no, we just don't like Dan. Everyone across the league hates this guy. That's the sense he's getting. It's not that there's a lot of unlikable people. It's that no one likes him. So if that's the case and he doesn't have true friends around the league, then what would he really know? Unless he's actually hiring investigators to go dig up dirt on other owners.
He's in a lot of meetings. The league has been named in a lot of lawsuits, concussions and everything else. He's in those meetings, and he has a vote. He's one of 32. And Roger Goodell speaks on behalf of Daniel Snyder. It's not the other way around. So I think he would know more than what people would tend to believe. And, the reports go on to say, like, he's done his own, reconnaissance mission on owners like Jerry Jones. That. That's where I think there is a group of ownership, Chad, at the top. If we're tiering all this, the guys with power. There is a group of ownership that tend to, stay together as the group instead of branching off individually. And I don't think they necessarily have to like each other to protect the overall brand, the shield, and the individual businesses that these guys have. Because they're worried about if he gets kicked out, if we're voting him out, what does that mean for me based on anything that could come up?
And look, they would go to great lengths to disavow anything that Daniel Snyder said about them.
Sure.
He'd have to have legitimate proof, and he'd have to be willing to do that.
They've been sued before.
He would torch everything he's ever done
to
become an NFL owner by doing that. Now, does the league, do owners that might have something to hide, are they really afraid of him doing that? Do they think that, this guy's actually going to go scorched earth?
But why would you worry about going scorched earth if you're getting voted out of the fraternity, and by doing so, maybe you're worried about the the building falling in, so to speak, the walls caving in. I mean, they're going to allow him to sell the franchise. He's going to be $5 billion plus richer because of it. But I don't think it gets to that point because no individual NFL owner wants that to happen to them.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. The precedent of being forced out.
Here's your $5 billion.
You don't want being forced out. Like Richardson in Carolina was somewhat forced out due to pressure, but you don't want to start
setting. That was also a family thing.
Yeah, you don't want to start setting the precedent of those things happening if you're another owner. But you also don't want Daniel Snyder deciding to go rogue and start talking about other lawsuits that have happened around sexual harassment in the league with different owners. I'm sure there's other things he knows that he's probably saying to himself, Hutton, everything I've been accused of doing or anything I've done has gone on tenfold at other places or is happening right now.
But even if it's not tenfold, I'm sure he has something to show where it has happened, right?
Yes.
So it's not even if it's the same, not even tenfold. I'm just, and I'm sure like all the assumptions that are being made on what could he know, what is he not. I'm sure he knows a lot, and it's enough to where you don't want it out there if you're the league, but the individual ownership doesn't want it out there because as an individual, you're stronger as the group, and you never want to be kicked off the island. So we're not going to do it to anybody because we've already allowed him in.
It's a tricky spot, and there's a reason that they did all the investigation without writing it down. Right,
Exactly.
And they're not going to let it out because
there is no written report.
I'll put it in these terms. I don't think that the league is comfortable with Daniel Snyder having access to the nuclear button.
But all 32 do. I think that's his point.
My point is that's why he's not getting voted off the island.
Yeah.
Because they feel like this isn't a guy who will take his $5 billion or whatever they sell for and just go off into the sunset. He's going to do something to put me at risk, to put my franchise at risk. If you're Roger Goodell, you're saying he's going to say or do something to put my league at risk.
Yes.
And we don't want that. So while publicly making these statements, reprimanding him, or things weren't done right, but we're fixing it and saying all those things, we'll do that. But when push comes to shove, we're not going to get too forceful with this guy. Because he may have receipts.
And it takes 2/3 of a ownership vote to oust one of the fraternity members. And that's what we refer to it as because it is very tight-knit within the circle, and they have one major voice in Roger Goodell in the league office that speaks on behalf of the league. They're speaking on behalf of the 32 owners. It takes 24 of the 32 for an owner to be forced out of the ownership group that is the National Football League. And you don't want to set a precedent where you have 24 if you're the guy that needs to be the 24th vote. Even though Daniel Snyder's not good for the NFL. That's not us sitting here saying that. But
it's true.
They also don't want to have to look in the mirror in some cases.
No, look, he's not good for the NFL, but what's worse for the NFL is Daniel Snyder exposing a bunch of secrets about multiple other owners. That's even worse.
Right.
So that's what they're trying to avoid.
Chad, when we come back, Michael McKenry will join us to kick off hour number 2. And I have a feeling I know where you're going to lead. Atlanta and Philadelphia.
Shall I do a tomahawk chop on air when we come back?
You'll turn out the lights and turn on the
David,
tomahawk?
let's get some LED lights in here. Let's get a light show going during the break, and we'll get it ready to go.
So if they lost yesterday, you were saying the series was over.
Season's over.
Based on the win,
they had to win.
How do you feel now?
I feel like it's going to be a great 3-game series moving forward. The Braves still haven't announced who they're going to start, whether it be Charlie Morton or Spencer Strider, who's coming off injury, who's the young phenom. So that's a big decision about tomorrow. They play at 3:37 Central Time tomorrow afternoon. Kind of another odd start time.
Coming up, Michael McKenry joins us. We'll talk analytics and go beneath the surface on the matchups of the MLB postseason. Then, in 25 minutes, we talk NFL with Armando Salguero of OutKick.com on OutKick 360. If you're looking for a place to bet on a game today or a futures wager, head to OutKick's Odds Finder. OutKick.com/odds. It's where you'll find spreads, totals, and moneyline odds for every upcoming game. I love it because it's super easy to navigate. Bookmark OutKick.com/odds and make OutKick bets a part of your daily sports betting routine. For bets decided by season-long results, head to OutKick's Futures Finder. OutKick.com/futures. Just select your state, place your bet. It's honestly that simple. And similar to the Futures Finder, the Prop Bet Finder allows you to search by player, team, or game for any sport. Check out the OutKick.com/props, and from there, click the Odds tab. You'll go directly to the sports book to place your bet. Boost your game day experience with OutKick Bets. OutKick.com/bet. Get the edge with OutKick Bets. OutKick 360 Thursday edition, just like that. Second hour is here. We're going to talk Major League Baseball postseason with Michael McKenry, former Pirates catcher, Major League catcher, and now broadcaster. And great with the analytics and the numbers previewing the series. We'll chat with him in a matter of minutes. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Tomorrow, we are live in Knoxville at Cool Beans, Tennessee and Alabama. It's here, third Saturday in October, the game of the season so far, not for the two programs of college football, number 3 versus number 6. And we get a chance to take in the entire atmosphere Friday and Saturday with OutKick.com and OutKick 360.
Cool Beans is a legendary stopping point for many a volunteer and guest team over the years, right on campus, right off of the Strip on Cumberland Avenue in Knoxville. Come see us. Let's bring the energy tomorrow.
Yeah.
We want to have a good crowd there. I reached out to my nephew, who's I think a junior. I'll have to check with him. Maybe a senior at Tennessee. Shows how much I know.
Well, if
he's going to bring some buddies down.
He's a junior.
Look, there's going to be members of the Withrow family there. There's going to be Tennessee students there. I was talking with Preston here at Old Smoky earlier. He said there's going to be some alumni that get in town early that just to bring back the nostalgia, they're going to go to Cool Beans. I've spent many a night at Cool Beans back in the day, some of which I remember, some I don't. I'm going to be honest. Here's my goal tomorrow, though. I want to remember it. I want to remember this show. I want to remember this show. I want it to be memorable. I want there to be a big crowd there. Tony Vitello is going to join us tomorrow. Tennessee baseball coach, man of the people. He will be there with us. We're going to have a great time.
Tony V.
Come hang out with us. Come say hello. Hutton, in my latest column, I don't know if you've read it yet because you haven't said anything, but in the first paragraph, I say, if you come by tomorrow, Hutton will buy you a beer.
Oh, thank you.
If you join us in Knoxville, Hutton will be the first to buy you a beer.
And people will think I'm Clay.
Right.
So technically, they'll think Clay bought them a beer.
Do you think we get away with it by just saying put it on Clay Travis's tab at the bar? That maybe Clay has called ahead and said, put those guys on me and whoever they want on there. And just people keep running up the
even
bar
if we
tab?
don't get away with it, Chad, Clay's still paying. So, yes, we'll get away with it.
Clay confront it. Clay confront it. Clay's response is probably, I'll just buy the bar, is actually what he'll go to next, not just the tab.
What's this cost? Oh, this beer? No, this bar.
Yeah, I want this. These four walls. How much for this physical property?
Are we a go, guys? Oh, we are. Michael McKenry joins us. I could see him, but no one told me you were ready, Michael. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Just moving and shaking at the house, trying to get everything packed up. So it's been a long day.
Hey, packing up, but Chad's not packing up with the Braves right now. He told us yesterday on the show if his Bravos lose Game 2, the season's over. He's done. You can pack it up.
Not that I'm done. I'm just saying the series falling down 0-2 at home. It's over.
Yeah,
I don't think the Braves are recovering from that and winning 3 straight against the Phillies, but they got it done.
And now he feels pretty good about the series. I would too if I'm a Braves fan right now.
Yeah, you should. I mean, there's a little bit of magic going on. You think about that Swanson catch, some of the infield singles that scored some runs. It just seemed like the tide shifted into their favor yesterday. And that's a good sign for the Braves because they're really a momentum type team. Acuna stayed in the game after he got hit. I felt like they got recharged after that. And then I'm praying that to be determined is Charlie Morton. They let Strider kind of get his bearings back. We made that mistake in Pittsburgh in 13. We started Garrett Cole. Not that he wasn't maybe the better pitcher than A.J. Burnett, but you always go with that veteran. The reason being is he looks up to Charlie Morton. He wants to be Charlie Morton in 14 years after his career and say, man, I'm making $20 million a year, blah, blah. He's got a lot of pressure on him. Knoxville kid, don't bring him back to pitch that third game. It's not good for him. It's not good for the Braves. Let Charlie Morton go out there and just dominate.
Michael McKenry joins us on OutKick 360. We're talking Major League Baseball. We have spent quite some time talking payrolls in the postseason. Behind the scenes, in the clubhouse, how much do the guys talk about payroll club to club?
It's a lot. I mean, you think about, especially when you get to arbitration, you have to start thinking about, are they going to keep me? Like I remember my first time in arbitration, I hurt my knee and I knew immediately being with the Pirates, I'm gone. Doesn't matter. I'm just a little bit above league average, maybe double, and they're not going to keep me because they can kind of put it in their mind and say, oh, if we save that $500,000, maybe we can get this guy and piece this together. And they start doing all these chess pieces instead of just going out and saying, we like that guy. He makes our team better. Because he makes our team better, maybe that'll build a culture that'll bring people to the seats. And that should be all that matters because winning brings people, right? Good cultures bring people. That's what the Braves done. You look at their roster for the next 8 years. It looks, I guess the next 6, I should say, looks phenomenal. There's a reason Charlie Morton just keeps coming back, right? He's like, oh, I'm going to retire. Nope, I'm coming back. It's because of the culture they built, the things that they're doing. And I think that's really important, even for small market teams. Lock them up earlier. We just saw what happened to Strider. We saw what the Chicago White Sox did. We've seen the Astros have done. They lock up their young guys, the guys that really have that tenacity, that grit, that resilience that you want in a team, and they want to build their team around it. They just did it with the Pirates, Key Brian Hayes. they got to keep doing it. But the reality of it is that's the only way to compete in a small market, unless you're Tampa Bay and nobody's really a human being. They just rotate, throw it left, throw it right, and they let the humans be on the field, but they have these robots up in the front office saying, no, we're going to trade our closer right in the middle of the season, get 3 prospects back that end up being better. It's just remarkable what they do. But the reality of it is they don't think about the human first. They think about the analytics first.
And from a Philly perspective in this series, they did exactly what they needed to do. They win game 1. They split in Atlanta. Now they've got their ace, Aaron Nola, going in game 3, and they were able to bridge the gap after winning the first 2 games in that series against St. Louis. And if I look throughout the postseason right now, Michael, and I'm trying to pinpoint a team that may be that team that gets hot at the right time, that always had the right amount of talent to do it, but underachieved for most of the regular season, it's got to be the Phillies, right? If you're picking a candidate to be that team, when you look at their payroll and see they're paying $50 million more a year than the Braves to their team, I look at Philly as that possible team. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like Cleveland and Philly and Seattle really had the momentum going into the playoffs. And you look at Philadelphia, they bring back Wheeler. They shut him down, which was kind of remarkable. I think when you look at the Braves, he's probably the one they were scared of. So Nola is kind of a step back, because Wheeler was just absolutely dominant against St. Louis. He looked pretty much dominant against the Braves, got some luck on their side. So I think they could take a big, deep breath and say, okay, now we can go out, maybe start mashing a little bit. But they weren't worried about kind of going toe-to-toe with these Phillies offensively. And the Braves had the better defense. But, man, that back into the bullpen, the way they've stepped up in Philadelphia has been kind of remarkable with Alvarado and the kid that's 31 that, used to be a construction worker. He ended up signing in Mexico, going to Japan. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but that's remarkable to me. They've put together a really good team. And I got to say, it's got to be Bryce Harper coming back, playing with a torn UCL in his elbow, really just DHing, gets hit in the wrist, beats that, still has a great year, probably a front runner in the MVP with Goldschmidt and Arenado if he didn't get hurt. So I kind of put it on him because he showed that, hey, I'm just an old school ball player that wants to be on the field and I want to win. And I think Philly just got behind him. We know what type of fans they have, and if they get behind you, it's going to be tough.
I had this conversation with a group of buddies the other night watching the Yankees and Cleveland game, and we were talking about the payrolls, and there's a $180 million gap between the Guardians and the Yankees and the payroll. And we started talking about, hey, is that something that we really appreciate about the sport, that they're sitting here in the ALDS against each other, and there's a $180 million gap between the teams? And my response was, get back to me after this series is over. Because if it's a 3-game sweep, I don't like it at all. If the Yankees sweep them in 3 games, if they push them to 5 games, if the Guardians somehow pull off the upset, then yeah, you come back and you trumpet that as a baseball fan and say, well, look, this is the nature of the sport. It doesn't matter if you don't have the right chemistry and the right components. This little engine that could, that's $180 million different, pulled off the big upset. What do you make of a series like that, Michael, when you see that big of a gap in pay between 2 teams?
The culture matters. I know it's a taboo, but if you have a really good clubhouse, and for them it's Jose Ramirez staying there, taking less money, saying my kid was born here, this is my home, this is where I want to be. And Terry Francona, I remember the interview early in spring training, said, I went to Ramirez and I said, this is your team. Keyword, this is your team. Take care of these young guys, show them how to play. And Ramirez has not skipped a beat. He runs out every ball, plays hard. He's diving into the stands, doing a lot of different things. So they set a standard there that's just different. Where I think the Yankees, with all that money, have set a different standard. It hasn't changed since way back when. You can only have a mustache, which Mario was supposed to pitch tonight. He's pitching tomorrow. So the reality of it there, they've set the standard there. Cleveland's creating their own culture, their own standards, and their own identity. And I think that's so important because you can only do that on the field with the players you have. You can't have this philosophy and run with it and not allow the personalities to come out. I mean, you look at Cleveland, Terry Francona, when was it Naylor or whatever, the first baseman, I can't think of his name exactly, but he headbutts Terry Francona every home run he hits. So Terry Francona has a helmet on waiting on him. I mean, that's awesome, right? That's back to college, that's back to high school. That's creating an atmosphere that you want to play in. So no amount of money can really produce that. So that's the problem with baseball. You can put together these misfits and say, hey, we're the youngest team in baseball, and go against the juggernauts, and you really don't know who's going to win.
Paul's off visiting family today and tomorrow, Michael, but he would appreciate your take on this because I know you've caught Garrett Cole before in your career. And prior to game one, I told him, I said, look, based on the numbers, the Guardians aren't a power roster by any means. I know he gives up the home run ball, and you can tell us why that's an issue for him. But this is a great matchup for him to get back on track, and he did in game one. Why is the home run ball such an issue for Garrett Cole right now?
It's the high spin. Obviously, breaking balls, it's easier to kind of clip. That high spin creates fly balls. Breaking balls create fly balls. And then you play it in New York. He's got short porch and right. I mean, where did he give up the home run just the other day? It was to right field. He ever since he kind of stepped away from the sinker being his primary fastball, the home run numbers went up, but the strikeout numbers went up. He became a different dude, very similar to what Charlie Morton did. But Charlie Morton in Atlanta didn't actually change the sinker usage to righties. Garrett really has, because it complements better with this breaking ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of goes through the postseason. I thought what he did against Cleveland was outstanding. The very first time I caught him, he did the exact same thing with me, and it was really a trust. He said, all right, these guys are kind of on my heater. They're fouling it off. I don't feel comfortable. So he started pitching backwards. What that means is he started throwing breaking ball early, getting the fastball in late, but he was reading swings as good as I'd seen him. Sometimes he gets so wound up. He's such a competitor that maybe he thinks, hey, I can blow this 99 by you. Not quite high enough. You clip the bottom half of that ball that creates that spin to really take off. And that's kind of why he's giving up all those home runs.
What kind of chance do you give the Padres in this series against the Dodgers after they took game 2 to even it up?
You know, it's all on Snell, in my opinion. I mean, Hader's kind of really taken the turn back to who he is. He's really become something different. I think that was a huge culture shock when he left there. The ball field difference in San Diego compared to in an airplane hangar in Milwaukee is completely different. But Snell is going to be the big difference. He's got the stuff. He has the ability. He's just got to make sure to repeat that delivery and get in the zone more often. He's got to get that 5th or 6th inning because they can't keep throwing out Martinez every single day, even though he's an older guy. They got to be able to bridge the gap to get to the back end of their bullpen, or they're going to have a big trouble. So this next game is really the I guess the rubber match of sorts. Because if they get to Musgrove, they're in good shape. That guy is a donkey.
You know Musgrove well, right?
Yeah, I love the guy. He's one of my favorite guys in the entire league. If I was going to be in the bunker with somebody, throw Musgrove right next to me because, you know, all the ear gate and everything else, and kind of wiping his nose, throwing it, that's who he is. And the reality of it is there's a reason his manager stuck up for him because he will literally go to the trenches for any teammate he has at any moment. If you're on the other side, watch out. You're not a teammate anymore. He'll throw it up and in at you, break you off. He does not care. He wants to win on any given day. And he's one of the better guys in baseball, in my opinion, on the mound that people don't talk about enough.
Well, you know, we were chatting about his ears and the umpire rubbing them down, like down to the eardrum. What would the umpire say off mic, off privately about the rules and how they have to check the pitchers?
Some of the guys I've talked to, they don't like these rules. They feel like it's kind of ridiculous to go over. And I mean, we've seen guys rub people's hair. It looks like they're a monkey picking out fleas.
Yes.
You just too many things. I mean, I'll never forget the first couple of days that they did it. Mad Max unbuckled his pants fell down. It was like, hey, just go ahead and check me. Let's go. The reality of it is you don't do that in the middle of the season. I think it set a really bad precedent last year. And then going into this year, I mean, depending on where you're at, if the ball isn't like the same, like out in San Diego, LA, Arizona, the weather's dry, the ball dries out. And when it dries out, it really doesn't have any feel or any grip. And it feels terrible. It feels like you have powder on the ball. So use sweat and rosin. That's what most guys use. Some guys sunscreen. Okay, how are any of those things a problem, right? It gives you a little bit of tack and you throw, they get in the way of it. What do they think he has on his ear? Vaseline? Like he's a fighter? He's just closing the cuts on his ear from the punches? I mean, it was just ridiculous. Yeah, Musgrove.
He's got Mickey from Rocky in there in the
clubhouse. He's in the dugout, just here squeezing the water.
Hey, Michael, you described Musgrove as a donkey. That is not an insult. So please explain that to the layman who may be watching now when you say he's a donkey.
I think of a donkey as the guy that you can throw the entire weight of the world on top of, and he just keeps walking.
There you go.
It just doesn't stop. Maybe it's the mule, but like he's got to be more of a thoroughbred type
I think donkey works too. Donkey or mule. Mule has a negative connotation because people think drug mules, right? When you say he's a mule, so donkey could be the way. I just wanted to clear that up because some people may hear that think, is it an insult? Is it not? I knew what you were saying, but I wanted your definition. You're an analytics guy. I know you wanted to talk about Yordan Alvarez of the Astros, and you had some thoughts on him as a player.
I mean, he's not talked about enough. I mean, the reality of it is he's under 25. And over the last 3 years or so, 1,500 bats, the guy's been one of the best players in all baseball when it comes to just his production. And I've been amazed at his ability to do a lot of the similarities to Pujols. He's hitting for an average. His walk-to-strike ratio is unbelievable, and he's hitting for power. And he's doing it as a 24-year-old. It's just unbelievable what this guy's being able to do. He's a juggernaut, just like Judge, just like Stanton, just like O'Neal Cruz, these guys that just don't fit in the league. Ohtani's maybe even another league. These guys need another league. I mean, this is a great graphic. I mean, if you don't follow this guy, you should. He always puts out great information. And what that WRC plus is it takes in all the factors, your park and everything else, and shows really the value you're producing. Look who he's right above. And look at those names. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Lou Gehrig. Absolutely phenomenal names. I mean, 5 and 6, we all know who those are. Mickey Mantle, he was okay. But you look at it, he's been better than Judge over those last 1,500 plate appearances. No one's talking about it. I mean, obviously Judge has gotten hurt. He's gone through some different things, and he plays in New York compared to Houston. But man, this guy is absolutely special. He does it year in, year out. And there was a point about 3/4 of the way through the season, everybody thought he was going to win the MVP, but nobody really talked about him because Judge, Ohtani kind of always get the cake, and then Mike Trout right after that.
And our next look at individual players through you, Michael, is Tyler Anderson. Where is he separating himself specifically?
I mean, this is a guy that when I was in Colorado in 2014, I sat down with him. He's sitting down with me, Cargo Tulowitzki, Nolan Arenado, talking hitting. Not many pitchers just sit around, talk hitting. The guy wanted to learn, he wanted to grow, and he was on the IL. Couldn't pitch. They told him he'd never pitch again. He had some weird thing in his elbow. Well, guess what? He pitched. He clawed his way back through Colorado, got to the big leagues, came over to the Pirates, absolutely phenomenal, got traded to Seattle, and then literally took a lot less money to go to the Dodgers, learn from them, grow, and maybe next year he signs a big contract. But that lowest hard hit rate is remarkable to me because this guy throws 88 to 92, maxed out 93, really good changeup, but he's got some funk. I call it the kung fu kick. He does this little thing where he does this. It's always different timing. And as a hitter, it's miserable. He'll drop down. He'll do a lot of different things. And I don't think people understand how good he is. And he's the guy that may get the ball in Game 3 for the Dodgers. They're still trying to figure that out. I think even if they put a name out there, I wouldn't put it past him to change it, because him and May are two guys that really are interesting. And the reason why I want to talk about him is because tonight was supposed to be Cortez. I call him Super Mario. If you've seen him, he looks like Mario's got the mustache, but similar thing. He does a lot of things to throw your timing off. And both these guys I've faced, and they're just so tough. They don't wow you with the velocity or anything like that. They wow you with their ability just to go out and execute pitches, disrupt timing, and read hitters. And it's kind of an old school approach, but it's so fun as a former player and a fan.
We're loving this, man.
Donkeys, kung fu kicks. We're covering all the bases here with you, Michael. This is perfect.
Get back to packing up the place, and next week we'll take another deep dive in the series and how things have concluded, and look ahead to what's going to be a great championship series on both sides.
No doubt about it. I'm looking forward to it, and go Braves. I'm all Braves all the way. And I don't know if you guys have watched Seattle at all, but what about the big dumper?
Hey, man,
heard that yet?
I can't wait for the atmosphere to get back there. I know, to watch the fan base there. And they're going to move the NFL kickoff because of that game if they get to Game 4.
Wow, that never happens. That's remarkable. It's a lot about the city.
Yes. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. God bless you.
Same to you. There's Michael McKenry.
God bless him. Go Braves, just like Michael said. I'll reiterate that.
Coming up, we talk
The Armando Salguero.
NFL headlines. We're going to preview Week 6. We'll talk Dan Snyder, and
he'll crush the Lions. And
the
fact that we like
you
the
know what?
Lions.
Maybe
in the
we'll avoid the
preseason.
Lions. Maybe we'll avoid the Lions.
We'll just skate past that.
We'll
this
talk Chiefs and Bills instead.
week for 20 straight minutes.
That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Back in the day, before the explosion of I got to have this, Clemson built this, so Alabama's building this, Indiana, we got to have the world's biggest weight room. Purdue, we got to be bigger than Indiana. You know, before the locker room wars, the arms race of college sports, the theory used to be this, at least at Indiana University men's basketball. The theory at Indiana University men's basketball back in the day when they were winning championships was, look, we want you to be comfortable here. We're going to give you the best health care. We're going to give you the best weights. We're going to give you all that. But we don't want you hanging around the locker room. If you're coming to work, come to work. If you're coming to practice, that's work. Go out, get on the floor, get your workout in. Hey, we got a great training table for you. Go home, you're done. I think you will 1,000% tonight see a good football game. I do. Last week was a comedy of errors, both in terms of execution and in terms of participation. I don't think you're going to see that tonight. I think Justin Fields is getting better. And I'll be honest with you, when you look at quarterbacks across the league, according to the numbers, the fourth best quarterback is Carson Wentz. The one thing I wanted to ask Mike, and I should have, was why is it so easy to bash Carson Wentz? Like, it's just easy. His coach, we talked about it, had to walk back comments. All right. What? It's gotten so freaking easy to just simply say, it's Carson Wentz being Carson Wentz. The dude is throwing for a ton of yards. 9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Hey guys, it's Tomi. You can follow me on all my social media platforms at Tomi Lahren. And in case you missed my latest episode, here is what you missed. Big tech colludes with big government and big pharma and big BS to push leftist-friendly narratives. No duh, we know this. It's a tale as old as, well, the creation of social media. But the latest brazen and then apologetic offender is PayPal. Over the weekend, the company released its new acceptable use policy set to take effect on November 3rd, and it came with a not so thinly veiled threat update that stated users would be penalized for the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation or present a risk to user safety or well-being. And those in violation will be slapped with a $2,500 fine that would be taken directly from their PayPal account. Come again, PayPal? Do they really threaten to dip into the accounts of users if they, the self-appointed wardens of truth, fact, and science, deem certain content to be misinformation? Yeah, they sure as hell did. I've been spending the last several days of my shows, honestly, the last months of my shows, talking about big tech and talking about how they censor vaccine critical information, how they censor conservative voices, they censor Donald Trump, people that they just quite frankly don't like. What boggles my mind is that they tell us that they can't get rid of the child porn on the internet. They can't get rid of that. You can get rid of all the COVID misinformation, somebody being critical or explaining a very real world situation whether they had a vaccine side effect. That's deemed bad for the public well-being. But they're telling us they really can't cleanse all this filth from the internet?
They can. So they hide it under the guise of privacy and encryption, right? And they spend millions, if not billions of dollars lobbying Congress to protect the privacy of people. Meanwhile, they can see everything that we say. They know everything that we do. Every single thing that we think, we look at, we Google, we search is exploited and sold for advertisements and dollars. They know everything that we do. They even know your eye movement as you look at the phone and what makes you pay attention.
You guys know I always back the Blues, so tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern as I sit down with the founder and CEO of Street Cop Training, and you don't want to miss this.
Armando Salguero with us from OutKick.com as OutKick 360 rolls on. Senior NFL writer and columnist for the site. He's going to be like us, taking in all the great football this weekend, and then he's headed to the owners' meetings. And the timing of this is, I don't know if it's planned or not, Armando, but we have the Daniel Snyder story on the preview for the owners' meetings, and I'm wondering how many questions these guys are going to get about this from Daniel Snyder. Is he allowed to go to this right now, or is it Tanya, his wife, that's going? I'm confused by the whole ownership structure right now in Washington.
Right. So he is not going to be part of these meetings.
Okay.
And
that's unfortunate.
Yes, that is unfortunate. Because that would be a wonderful moment for everyone to watch all the awkwardness as he walks through the halls trying to be friends with everybody who are not his friends anymore.
But his enemies who will not vote him out, and you have a great piece to this right now at OutKick.com where you put some feelers out with some people in the AFC, and they told you what in regards to a response as to what Snyder was saying.
So if you all remember when the commissioner testified in front of Congress, he was asked repeatedly, why don't you simply boot Daniel Snyder? Why don't you, just force him to sell the team? And his answer repeatedly was, I can't do that. And the reason for that is because the NFL bylaws state that for that to happen, someone would have to make a motion, and then 24 out of the 32 or of the owners would have to agree to go that route. And no one wants to go that route. The reason no one really wants to go that route is it sets a precedence. And as I was told today, and I wrote for OutKick, once you set that precedence, it can be used again and again. And eventually, what you're using on someone else might be used on you. And nobody in that room wants that.
Armando Salguero, our guest. We've got two great games on Sunday. Sunday night will be Philadelphia hosting Dallas. And then, of course, we've got the MVP showdown between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the rematch from the playoffs back in Kansas City. That deserves all the hype. Is the more impactful game in Philadelphia because of the division race right now in the NFC East?
Well, they're both impactful. Obviously, one is going to possibly help settle a division, and the other one's going to probably and possibly settle a conference. So,
yeah. And at least Dallas and Philly play twice.
That is true. That is true. I get the feeling that Buffalo and Kansas City might end up playing twice.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
At least I hope they do, because when those two teams get at it, I personally, I understand that there are folks out there that love hard-nosed defensive football. I like the circus. I like fireworks. And I like it when it's 42 to 40 or something like that. And when Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes get together, that's what we're going to get. That's exactly what we got the last time. I believe that's what's going to happen this time. Both of them are basically on task for record-setting seasons. Patrick Mahomes, he's on pace for 51 touchdown passes. If he has an amazing game, if he throws 6 in one of those games, he's going to be on pace for Peyton Manning's 55. And Josh Allen is on pace to throw for 5,700 yards, which is just outrageous.
I was really hoping that they would gun for the record for most passing yards in a game last Sunday against Pittsburgh. It's crazy to me how long that record is still up there, how long it's lasted, considering the the rules and what we see from the passing offenses now. And, I mean, it looked like he was going to get it by halftime based on how he's throwing it. I'm curious to get your take on this, Armando. Is this the week where we see the absence of Tyreek Hill in Kansas City show up, or is it no big deal in KC?
No, it's a deal. I don't know that it's a big deal. They're past that. I was with that team a couple of weeks ago, and Andy Reid has answers for not having Tyreek Hill anymore. You would say, or some people would say, not great answers. But the answer is we're not relying on one guy to blow the top off the defense anymore. We're going to do it with 3 guys, and it doesn't mean we have to blow the top off the defense when our guy is pitching and catching 8 yards a pop, 10 yards a pop, 15 yards a pop, and the defense are pulling their hair out. It still moves the football. It may not be as explosive, but it's still dynamic.
Armando Salguero, our guest on OutKick 360.
So Commanders-Bears, Armando. I mean, we talked about the most impactful games of the weekend. I mean, I can't believe we haven't gotten to this one yet in terms of impact. We had this discussion earlier, though. Last week was almost interesting simply because the star power of the quarterbacks who were failing so badly with Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson. This is a game that's not going to have that impact because we expect these 2 quarterbacks to fail in this game, right? Because of their history. So this is probably the worst game of the 2.
Yeah. And okay, so you want a little bit of insight into my world. I have Carson Wentz on my fantasy team, and I have John Dotson on my fantasy team, and I have Brian Robinson now on my fantasy team. I've got all these guys on a very bad offense, and they're all on my fantasy team. Can you figure out why I am 1-4? Can you figure that out?
I can figure it out. I can put 2 and 2 together on that one.
There are plenty of candidates for comeback player of the year. Can Brian Robinson win it in the same season?
That's a great question. Wow. That is an outstanding
I've never asked or thought of that, but I mean, he's starting tonight. They've announced he's the starting running back on Thursday Night Football, and he just returned last week.
You know, that I'm going to, when I get off of here, email the guy that runs the Associated Press awards, and I vote on those awards, by the way, and ask him if Brian Robinson might be a candidate. I do know this. They don't tell you can't vote for someone.
Okay.
So if someone wants to do that, that's perfectly fine, I think. So the short answer is I think you could. On the other hand, you know, we're not there yet. You got
sure.
So far, he has like 22 rushing yards, so we'll see.
Right. Curious on this. So I don't think there's much of an issue, at least not yet, with Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush, right? Like when Dak comes back, if he's not good, then there's a quarterback issue. Is the Bailey Zappi thing in New England a thing? Or
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because in the past, Albert Breer has said in the past that Belichick has said when Mac Jones is ready, he's the guy. And now he's not doing that, and it's very intentional.
Look, I think we're not comparing Bailey Zappi to Tom Brady. Okay,
sure.
So let's start there. Under no circumstances are we making that comparison. But success is success is success. And as long as Bailey Zappi is winning, and as long as he finds a way to win and doesn't hurt his team, Bailey Zappi will play, regardless of whether Mac Jones is ready to go or not. And that's not yet anyway. That's a couple of weeks off at least. So there's that. But we have to understand and remember, Bill Belichick benched the highest paid quarterback in the NFL at the time back in 2001. And I remember because I was, in New England a lot that year for ESPN. And the idea was Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady yet. He was kind of like this middling, kind of dorky, awkward looking quarterback, but he didn't make a lot of mistakes, something that Drew Bledsoe's, more often did. And he wasn't as dynamic as Drew Bledsoe, but he didn't make a lot of mistakes. And that was the overriding and overarching factor in continuing with him as the team continued to win on what? On defense and a running game. Well, the Patriots now, when they do win, they win on what? Well, their defense and their running game. And if the quarterback doesn't screw it up, we're good on most days until you play Josh Allen, and then you're not.
So, Armando, we have not had you on since the controversial roughing the passer penalties on Sunday against Tom Brady with Grady Jarrett and the Falcons, and then Monday with Chris Jones and the Chiefs on Derek Carr. When you see these, do you think it's a direct correlation to what's going on with quarterbacks hitting the ground that we've seen in very visible settings, or is this something else happening with two just really egregious calls in the NFL?
So I'm going to be the idiot in the room. The Tom Brady call, if you're saying that was egregious, it probably was, then you have to also say that the Marcus Mariota sack in the second quarter was also egregious, because it was the same play. Exactly. Just two different guys, but the exact same play. And I think players typically, they care about consistency. If you're going to be terrible all the time, they'll accept that, but at least they'll understand, look, this is how they're being called, so we'll adjust our play accordingly. The Derek Carr thing, that was just out of left field. That was just weird, because number one, it happened when the guy caused the fumble. The official, Carl Jeffers, said it didn't matter. It happened when Chris Jones did not land full body on Derek Carr. Carl Jeffers said he did. And it happened on national television with Troy Aikman saying that the NFL has lost its manhood, basically. So that was the one that really kind of, if the Brady one lit a spark, the Derek Carr one was the one that blew the room up. And I think that's what people are worried about, because it is, at the end of the day, a judgment call. If the refs are proving that they have the same judgment for everybody, that's one thing. But that Derek Carr thing was weird.
Two quick ones on the way out. So Skylar Thompson is going to start regardless of Teddy Bridgewater's status, right, for Sunday?
Yes, which I think is ridiculous, but yes.
I mean, yeah, because if he's cleared, then we've seen players cleared and they play. It's bizarre.
Teddy Bridgewater was never hurt. I mean, to your knowledge.
But it's optics. But at the same time, and I know you feel this way too, because I can see based on your reaction, if Skylar Thompson gets hurt, then Teddy's playing. What are the optics there?
I completely. It's not just if he gets hurt. If Skylar Thompson, a 7th-round draft pick rookie, plays like a 7th-round draft pick rookie, he's out. And Teddy Bridgewater is in. So if you're going to possibly play him, why not start him?
Agreed. And second, am I crazy to think that a low-key game of the week is Giants-Ravens because of the Wink Martindale factor?
He wants his revenge. You're absolutely right. And I was talking to Bill Parcells this week, and he has nothing but great things to say about Wink Martindale. Obviously, he left the Ravens under strange circumstances, because he's not a good defensive coordinator. He's a great defensive coordinator. And I think the Ravens are not as good on defense now as a result. And yet, John Harbaugh moved on from him. And I think Wink Martindale, who knows the Ravens offense, saw it ad nauseum at practice the last couple of years. I think this is his chance to come with some stuff, and he has weapons. Unlike the offense on the Giants, they're doing it with smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
The defense, outside of maybe the cornerback situation, they've got athletes.
You thought I was going to go with Jags Colts on underrated. I did not do that. I went with
You're
Giants
welcome.
Ravens. You're very
welcome,
welcome for
Armando.
that. Yes, and
Thank you.
The NFL was so upset with that roughing the passer penalty on Tom Brady. They sent Jerome Boger to Indianapolis for this game. He's the white hat for Colts Jags. So you're welcome, America. You don't have to watch that game. Armando.
Oh, the Lions are not going to lose this weekend.
No, they're not. They absolutely will not. They have the bye week. Get a chance to get healthy, get rested. Maybe their coaches can come up with a better game plan and rattle off some wins here. Who knows? Always great stuff, man. Thank you. We look forward to your coverage next week as well at the owners' meetings.
Thank you, guys.
Armando Salguero, weekly with us. One of my favorite segments.
He's great. Terrific guy.
Coming up, we'll stick with football, but we go to the college ranks. And
yes.
Chad, you've got your top 5 storylines going into the college
football. I have put words
weekend
together for OutKick.com, and those words have been published, and we will discuss those words.
This is OutKick 360.
Hey, I'm David Hookstead, host of American Joyride, a podcast where we shine a spotlight on patriotism and American exceptionalism. Take a look.
This is something, again, that I really like to ask military guys because I feel like they have unique perspectives, sometimes that surprise people. But most importantly, in my opinion, anyone who's sacrificed on any level tends to be very grateful or more grateful than just your average person. So when you hear people maybe say that America is a terrible place or that we're an evil country full of evil people, do you kind of cringe when you hear that? Like, what's your reaction when you turn on the news and it's just nonstop negativity around the clock about how awful this place is?
Well, I actually don't turn on the news anymore because of that.
Smart.
It's one, not true. And it's unbelievably toxic how that mindset and hearing it all the time. Even if one, you believe it, then you go around believing that about your own nation all the time. Like, that's a horrible way to feel about who you is. They're not leaving, right? They're not finding a more noble country to go to. They're just staying here and they're sulking and they're spreading this horrible idea about how shameful we should all feel all the time. And I don't want to live that way, but I don't believe it. And so listening to it just pisses me off. I don't think that anyone is really able to say that with a straight face unless they have paid no attention to world history.
Right.
Like, it takes a real level of ignorance of history to say that America is unique in its cruelty. Like, it's just absurd. It's really, we're not void of it, but we are certainly not unique in it. I went on a bender around the time I went to Naked and Afraid because I felt like I could use these books to harness a better perspective and get me through the suffering that I anticipated. And they were recommendations by Jordan Peterson, who I like to, listen to a lot of the things he says. He's a very interesting person as well. But I read The Gulag Archipelago. I read Mao's Famine, Unit 731.
The old Japanese torture unit.
Oh, yeah. I read The Making of, what was it? It was another German book about the psychology of how they got these German policemen to do murders who were just regular cops.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. And it's about how, like, none of them opted out of it. Like, they just all were okay. I know the book you're referring to.
Yeah, man. And sort of the peer pressure involved, or the, how that happens. I read all of those books, and I'll be honest, it probably took me 3 or 4 months to get over them. Like, Unit 731 with the Japanese torture camps was specifically difficult. The rape of Nanking, that was another one. Holy hell. Like, how could you look at America and honestly believe, like, yes, we had slavery, but slavery was brought here. because it was everywhere else, right? Like this was the place everyone was going. We didn't invent it here, but we did get rid of it. And we killed a whole lot of people to do that. And I think that the people that say that, one, are either trying to be trendy and different, and they just don't understand what the hell they're saying.
Make sure to catch every single episode of American Joyride at OutKick.com.
OutKick 360 rolls on. And from 6th and Peabody, we're talking football every day with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us across the network, whether that's live right now, streaming at OutKick.com, or with this great radio station as you're tuned in. Hit us up at OutKick 360. You can also go to OutKick.com, where you can read right now Chad Withrow's top 5 college football storylines going into Saturday's play.
It's time, Hutton.
I love this segment.
Chill in the air. We got this music going right now. It's time to get ready for kickoff. 5 big storylines. The biggest storyline is in Knoxville. We're going to be there. We're going to have you covered. We'll be at Cool Beans in Knoxville, 3 to 6 Eastern time tomorrow. Come by and see us if you're in Knoxville for Tennessee, Alabama. That is the story of the college football season up to this point. But we're going to have you covered. Trey Wallace is going to have you covered on that game. He's going to join us tomorrow as well. So I dove into 5 different stories I'm following this weekend. The biggest one to me is Penn State, Michigan, going head-to-head in the Big House in Ann Arbor. Hutton, I think the winner of this game now emerges as the team that is that likely, if there's going to be 2 teams from the Big Ten to make the college football playoff, it's the winner of this game. Before the season, I had Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan making the college football playoff. If Michigan can win at home against Penn State, they're going to be in a good spot. Both teams led by their running backs, Blake Corum for Michigan, Nick Singleton, the fantastic freshman for Penn State, who ran all over Auburn. 51.5 is the over-under in this game. Should be a tightly contested running battle.
Sean Clifford is the last quarterback to win in the Big House. That was in 2020.
Syracuse is 6-0, by the way. This is my other storyline of the week. Who would have thought? Now, their 2 biggest wins, they beat Louisville badly, 31-7 in week 1. They survived Purdue 32-29 in week 3. Other than that, they really haven't beaten anyone.
But this week?
But this week they get NC State, who's been an underperforming team all year. They're a 3.5-point favorite at home. I think Syracuse gets it done. This is not your typical Dino Babers attack. When you think about his Bowling Green teams, throwing it everywhere, no. This is a team that's going to pound the rock. Garrett Schrader, the former Mississippi State starting quarterback, is a good running option at QB. And outside of that, Sean Tucker has been terrific at running back for the Orange all year. If they can win this week, and I'm going to get to this in another storyline, it sets up a huge game for the ACC Coastal a week from now against Clemson.
And Chad, I'm with you on this, because if Syracuse does this to NC State, the national media, guys like me who are on board with the Wolfpack, are going to look at that as a statement, a program win, right? Yeah. This is their chance to grab hold of some marquee attention.
And I misspoke. It's the ACC Atlantic. Why did I misspeak? Because I can't tell the difference between the two conferences because it's stupid. Go by geography. North, south, east, west. Very easy to put it down that way when your mind
don't like
can look
leaders
at
and legends
geography.
either?
I did not like the leaders or legends. That at least the Big Ten, though, admitted that was stupid and went to east and west pretty quickly.
Yes.
Coastal, it was stupid. Jim Leonard, not stupid so far. Pretty remarkable turnaround.
It's his job.
Granted, it was a bad Northwestern team they blew out, but they got blown out by Brett Bielema, their former head coach at Illinois now. Wisconsin got blown up, and then they go on the road and destroy Northwestern. They play a very bad Michigan State team on the road this weekend. Win that game, and I'm calling this the Jim Leonard head coach audition tour, is going to keep rolling along. And as crazy as it sounds, you look at Wisconsin's schedule and who they have left, they are right in line to win that Big Ten West, just like most people expected before the season. Hutton, if they do that or they're even close to doing that, Jim Leonard will be announced as the head coach before this season ends.
No doubt.
It's going to happen.
Yes. He may be 2 or 3 weeks away from that based on the way they played last week.
I'll go quick with my last two. Clemson in a huge 3-game stretch right now. This is going to define whether or not they're getting back to a college football playoff. They've got at Florida State this week. Then they go home to host Syracuse. And then they get a bye week. Then they go to Notre Dame.
When this is coming off a stretch where they had Wake Forest and NC State. And now they're going into this stretch.
Wake Forest was the game where their offense finally woke up. They won 51-45. And they look good against NC State and Boston College. Win these 3, though. I think their last few games are Louisville, Miami, South Carolina. They're going to the playoff.
They're in the playoff.
I think if they win the next 3 games, they're going to be in the college football playoff. Now we go to Utah. Utah hosting USC. Utah has tried and failed in their 2 big moments this year.
Yes.
They threw an interception in the end zone to lose in the swamp against Florida. They lost on the road to UCLA. By the way, Chip Kelly and UCLA still undefeated. This is their 3rd test of the year. I think they passed this one. I think it's going to be a lot different in Salt Lake City. At home against USC, I think Utah gets it done in this game. If they don't, though, if USC wins and UCLA goes on the road and beats Oregon, Chip Kelly's old team, in Eugene this weekend, think of what that USC-UCLA game could be at the end of the year with both teams undefeated in the second to last week of the season. So
maybe they draw a crowd.
That's a fun possibility. They may go over 50% capacity for that game. All those USC fans buying up the tickets are going to help.
This Utah game this weekend feels like A&M Bama from last year. Big expectations for A&M last year. They limp in with 2 losses, coming off a loss. Utah has had this game circled. We have a former intern who goes to school at Utah, works for the football program.
Yeah.
They have had this game circled all year, like calendar year. And now they're looking at this a bit different than when they did when they were looking at the schedule ahead of time. I kind of lean your way, though. I think Utah
gets it done this time. And let us not forget also, USC was 4-8 a year ago. And they're now undefeated in year 1 under Lincoln Riley. Helps to bring in all that talent also.
Coming up, we take a look at the SEC from the Vegas lens. We'll tell you who would be favored on a neutral field this week across the Southeastern Conference. That's next on OutKick 360. What's up? It's Hutton, OutKick 360. It is time for the 363 in 60.
All right, first question. Why are you a better team player than Clay Travis when it comes to the OutKick Fantasy League?
Because I actually follow through on the punishment. D-back. Play D-back.
And if you owned an NFL team totally brand new, you had to name it, pick the colors, the mascot, What are you picking?
The Alphas. That's the name of my team. And I'm moving to either Vegas or LA for a third team in LA or a second team in Vegas because everyone wants to go out west amongst the NFL owners.
F, marry, kill, breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
I am killing breakfast because I don't eat breakfast. I am marrying lunch and effing dinner for sure. I can carry over with 1 meal per day if I had to. Absolutely no breakfast for me. Mariners get 2 in the 4th. They lead the Astros 2-1 as we head to the 5th in the American League Divisional Series. OutKick 360. Final hours here, just like that. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. An hour left on today's program, and then tomorrow, live in Knoxville at Cool Beans, as we bring you the atmosphere and all the storylines with Tennessee, Alabama, and all the great games. 6 top 25 matchups this weekend. And we'll break those down. We'll go through week 6 of the NFL and much more. That is on tomorrow's show. Coming up in 20 minutes, one big thing on every NFL game.
One of my favorite segments every week.
Chad, each week on Thursdays, we're also taking a look from the Vegas lens of, and courtesy of Phil Steele and philsteele.com. And he was gracious enough to give us this information, which is behind a paywall for the SEC. The teams and where they would be ranked through the Vegas eye on neutral field and how Vegas values certain programs versus the AP top 25. And it's interesting to follow this based on how voters in the AP top 25 value wins, losses, or who you lose to. Vegas is looking at this saying, which team's better? Neutral field, who would be favored? And this gives you an idea of why you see certain spreads lopsided. For instance, Alabama's ahead of Georgia. And they've been that way, I believe, the entire time in Vegas. It's flip-flopped a bit in the AP top 25. Tennessee's right where they are in the AP, though, at 6 overall, 6 in the country. Mississippi State and Ole Miss are neck and neck, 8 and 10. So right now you've got 5 programs from the SEC in the top 10 on Vegas favorites. Maybe no surprise, but maybe a surprise of the programs represented, where it's Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. We're not seeing Arkansas. You don't see Texas A&M there anymore. They lost. They're now down to 22. They were 10 last week. Those are the two big points of emphasis for me. Is Vegas really likes both of the Bulldogs and the Rebels and what they're seeing right now. We're seeing Ole Miss this weekend with a nice game, and Mississippi State's on the road. They're taking on Kentucky.
Yeah, Mississippi State, Kentucky is a huge game this week.
Ole Miss, Auburn.
But we talked about, Vegas not lying. This is you can cram the numbers, put into an algorithm. They're not playing favorites. They don't have an AP voter history. They didn't go to a certain school and favor that school over another one.
Right.
So it's important to take a look at these numbers and say it for what it is, which is this is an unabashed, not rosy glassed colored, whatever you want to look at, slanted poll. This is what Vegas said where the money would be if you've got two teams meeting on neutral field. So I think it's important to look at this every week, and I'm glad we're doing this courtesy of philsteele.com every single week on the show. Here's the thing that jumps out to me. Here's what Vegas is telling us. Kentucky's not very good. They're 37th. They're right around South Carolina and not that far off from Missouri right now as a team. Now, you can look at that and say, well, is Kentucky good with Will Levis and not good without him? I would argue, and we could go back and look at the last couple of rankings, they've been lower than their ranking every week.
Yes.
Even with Will Levis, even not factoring in Will Levis injured
keep in mind,
for Kentucky.
We pointed this out. There was a huge gap in Vegas on Ole Miss and Kentucky. And we were looking at why. We've seen Kentucky go on the road and win in Gainesville. And Ole Miss was favored by 6.5 or 7, right, that week.
Yep.
And this doesn't seem right. And I think Kentucky covered there. They were able to keep that a close game. Ole Miss won the game, and it was a very lopsided poll that week in Vegas for the Wildcats. They don't value them unless they're playing at home. And even when they're playing at home, right now, you can look at Mississippi State. I think the line's, 4.5 for the Bulldogs?
It was 4 or 4.5. Last I saw, I thought it was 4.
And some of that could be Will Levis coming off injury and whether or not he's playing. I think we mentioned yesterday the idea that the thought is he is. But still, defense and run game, that doesn't carry with Vegas when it comes to Kentucky like it does with other programs for whatever reason. They've been very consistent, though. Like that, their defense, for the most part, shows up. And when they go on the road, we saw it in Florida. We didn't see it at Ole Miss.
So Mississippi State at Kentucky this week, this is a mirror image of Tennessee at LSU the week before. From Mississippi State's perspective, this is a chance to snuff out the life of Kentucky, quite frankly, in this season. And any hopes they had of reaching any expectation they had in the preseason, they're not going to reach it if they lose at home to Mississippi State. This is a reclamation project now for Kentucky after that home loss to South Carolina and the loss at Ole Miss. Now, if they go on and beat Mississippi State, it's all right there for them still. They still get a crack at Tennessee. They're still going to get a crack at Georgia. So there's still enormous games left for Kentucky. But we saw what Tennessee did to an LSU team that's just not as good as they are. They put it on them on the road. They were a 3-point favorite. I think it closed at 2.5 going into that game. Right around the same mark we're seeing Mississippi State at Kentucky as a 4-point favorite. So I look at this as a similar opportunity for State. I don't think they're going to go down there and win by 27. Or go up there and win by 27. Geography is important. The way Tennessee went down there to
LSU
the ACC. And won by 27, yes. or originally the Big Ten. But I think Mississippi State's the better team right now. And if Will Levis isn't 100% or he can't go in this game, then Mississippi State is a much better team.
So let's also say that in late July, Kentucky was the talk of SEC Media Days. Mississippi State was picked, what, 6th, 5th? I'm trying to see where they were. They were low in the West.
They were 5th.
They were ahead of Auburn.
They were 5th or 6th in the SEC West, yes.
And now I feel as though that's flip-flopped, where Mississippi State has taken over the Kentucky spot of expectation. And it's based on what they've done the last 2 weeks. They put up, 42 against A&M. They put up 40 against Arkansas. And now they face two programs that are known for defense. Now they're getting an opportunity with a program known for defense that's very consistent to go put up more. Mike Leach's team this year is playing very calm in big moments. And I think that's due in large part to the fact that he's got now he's got the third-year starter at quarterback and with Rodgers, and then players around him that have been there with him for quite some time now. They got a bit better in the run game, guys you can lean on. And that's what we're seeing now as the season draws to the heart of conference play. This is a tough team. And they're in similar ways, I trust that not as much. I trust them, though, that they're coming in to put up points, and you've got to match that. Kentucky's not matching that.
Will Rogers is breaking SEC records left and right. He just passed this past Saturday Aaron Murray's completion records in SEC history, the former Georgia quarterback. They're calm because it's a reflection of the calm leadership of their quarterback. Here's the other thing about Mississippi State. They got a great defense. That's what no one wants to talk about with Mississippi State because it's all about the air raid and Mike Leach, and I get that. But their defense has been very good this year and very opportunistic. So this is a really good Mississippi State team. Two biggest surprises in how good they are this year in the SEC, to me, is no doubt Tennessee, Mississippi State. Those are the two pleasant, shocking surprises. Not that they're good. There was a lot of talk about, hey, watch out for Mississippi State. They're better than people think. And Tennessee was picked, I think, third by the media.
Third.
Right behind Kentucky. So it's not like they were picked towards the bottom of the SEC East. People thought they were going to be pretty good, but they were outside the top 25 to start the season. Now here they are 6th in the country.
Here's the other thing, though. Last week, they completed passes, Mississippi State, to 11 different players. 6 of those 11 had at least 40 yards receiving. They're just rotating guys in, and I think they're starting to hit their mark a bit. I'm not thinking they shock the world and pull some massive upsets, as they take on Alabama and down the schedule. But this could set up a great Egg Bowl. That's what I'm thinking as I look ahead here.
Yeah.
Because while Kiffin's group, and he deserves credit because the transfer portal, he's brought new guys in, 2 new coordinators that he lost some really good play callers on both sides of the football. They're playing winning football. I'm really intrigued by that matchup now. And, this offense, and you mentioned their great defense this year, they're in it, right? You can't just count them out the same way. Now, they've also been healthy, and some of their opponents recently have not been. That also plays a huge factor. But even with that, Vegas is telling us that they trust them on a neutral field to put up points and cover the spread. Auburn, second worst value in Vegas right now. That's Ole Miss's opponent this week. It's 11 a.m. Central kickoff for the SEC. Is this Harson's last stand?
We've asked this question probably 4 different times this year already, and I remember
this could get ugly though.
I remember the win over Missouri, where Nathaniel Pete from Missouri fumbled it into the end zone in overtime that would have won the game for Missouri. And remember what we were immediately thinking when that happened, Hud, and we came back on Monday and said it. That fumble kept Brian Harsin employed for at least another week.
Then a missed
the way
kick.
It felt.
There was something else
There was
too.
a missed 19-yard field goal at the end of regulation, and that's the reason they went to overtime in the first place. And then I think Auburn hit a field goal, and Missouri was running it in to win the game and fumbled it out of the end zone. There's that big separation, too, still from Auburn to Vanderbilt, that Vandy's just not getting out of that triple digits right now in terms of Vegas rankings nationally. They led Ole Miss at halftime. on Saturday. I'm watching that first half, and I knew going into that game, we talked about it. This could be a weird game. That's a weird matchup rivalry game every year.
Was it 14-0, 14-3, something?
Vandy, Ole Miss are constant opponents from east to west, and that game always is just funky, I feel like. A year ago, it was a 14-point win for Ole Miss, and they were great.
And then third quarter, light switch.
Blown out. Lost, I think, 52-28 was the final score. No problem for Ole Miss. Yeah, I think Ole Miss is going to rock Auburn in this game. And then Auburn has the bye week. So to answer your question, Hutton, I think this is it for Brian Harsin. And Brian Harsin can set his sights on the Colorado job, on the Boise State job, on pick one of those jobs out in that part of the country. That's where he's going to go next.
Chad, Davey, you guys may know this better than me because I haven't seen the full rankings. Where's BYU on this? Arkansas is going to BYU. On a neutral field, they're ranked 28th. Arkansas is. So I don't know the BYU. We're checking it. But I'm curious about this because KJ Jefferson's back, and you have the SEC program going to a fantastic atmosphere. This is so BYU is ranked 25th, and Arkansas is 28th. This is going to be a great game.
Yeah, this is Hutton, this may make an appearance in my top 10 games of the week tomorrow.
Oh, it better. I mean, I'm really.
It does not have a lofty ranking, but it will reach the top 10.
Well, I don't think many people are going to watch this game. It kicks off the exact same time Tennessee and Alabama kick off. So there's a bummer there. Set your DVRs, though, to go watch this instead of just look at the final score because I'm intrigued by the style of play and the game in the trenches between both of these programs.
Where did you say you had Vegas? I'm sorry, you had
25th is what I was told.
26th. For BYU?
Okay. So it's 26th and 28th.
Unless I'm seeing an older ranking. No, I'm looking at an older ranking. So Davey, I'm sure, has it right. Either way, they're right there next to each other. I think this is going to be a cool scene for college football. BYU's been underwhelming this year, though, at times. Outside of that big win over Baylor. I think they beat Baylor in Provo. This is a big one for Sam Pittman in Arkansas, trying to avoid 4 straight. So it's going to be a fun one.
And this is not your typical October out-of-conference matchup, right?
I can't remember. I mean, I'm not just that it's a team from Fayetteville, Arkansas going to Provo, Utah, and Arkansas and BYU playing. I'm having a hard time remembering a lot of October non-conference SEC games, period. And I know this year changes a little bit because I know Tennessee has homecoming against UT Martin next week, for instance. But this is a September type game, right? This is like first 3 weeks of the season. You would see this type of matchup early before you're in the heart of conference play for both teams. So it's odd just that it's happening in mid-October.
They're a completely different team without KJ Jefferson whenever he's banged up. And he's playing hurt some last year too. Missed recently, and now the expectation is he's coming back. BYU has lost 6 games dating back to 2020. That's it. And they're extremely hard to beat there.
Yes.
Chad and I had the pleasure of going there just to check out a college atmosphere there. Maybe
we were there
10 years ago.
We were there with Middle Tennessee. This is probably 8 to 10 years ago, and we threw football on that field. Remember, they had a walkthrough the night before, and we were down the field and grabbed the football and threw on that field. It's awesome.
It's great. The mountain landscape. You got the snow-capped mountains, and the fan base is really cool.
I was watching the Eli's places that went back in the history of BYU. The big Y, the logo that's on one of the mountains, that's called Y Mountain. And when you look at it from the stadium, Hutton, I don't know what you're thinking, but it doesn't look like something you just walk up, like the way those mountains are in the background.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
But it's a trail. You can walk right up there and take pictures on the Y. That big stone Y that's up on that mountain. You can hike right up that bad boy.
So let me also mention this for those looking for a little extra knowledge on this game. So I mentioned they've lost 6 games since 2020. All 6 of those games were games kicked off before 6 p.m. Mountain Time. This is a 2:30 Central kick. This is early for them. So get ready. 4 of those games were 1:30 Mountain Time. So that's exactly the kickoff time.
I want to start hearing as much about these problems for BYU as we hear from LSU fans about kicking off in the morning. That needs to be the next thing. Like, how dare you not give us a nighttime game in a big matchup like this.
How dare you? Aside from atmosphere, it is
how dare you?
It is an advantage if you have one team that's used to one time zone versus another. Now, I'm not saying to go change your sleeping habits the way Michigan State did with Washington, but if you're kicking off a little earlier against an SEC opponent that's used to kicking off at 2:30 or 3:30 Eastern, that's the other thing.
It's
was it
Bill Belichick that went down to Miami a week early?
Whose restaurant did we have dinner with?
Robert Redford.
Yes.
Sundance.
Yes.
We went up to Sundance.
I couldn't remember that.
Wasn't there a rumor that he was there that night too?
He was there that night.
Or I feel like that's always like
he sat at our table.
This person's here. He actually sat in Hutton's lap. It was weird at first, but then
exactly where Chad is right now for those listening.
We all accepted it.
Yes.
After first questioning, we then said, "This is Robert Redford's place, right?" He sits in the lap of whoever he wants. And that night it was Hutton's lap.
A very wonderful
just fantastic
bison
drive up to the Sundance Resort there outside of Provo, Utah. I don't know what town. It may be Sundance, Utah, for all I know.
Maybe.
His resort, but it felt like an hour and a half away. It was not a close drive when we went to dinner from Provo. That was my memory of that drive.
One quick note, and we'll hammer this tomorrow in our college football preview. With an Ole Miss win and an Alabama loss, the Rebels sit atop the SEC West on Monday or Sunday when we come back.
Lane's revenge.
If Tennessee pulls the upset,
Lane's revenge.
Kiffin's schedule set up the way it has, where everything would be in front of them at that point to get to Atlanta. Not saying I'm picking that. It's just an interesting scenario we could be discussing come Monday here on the show. Coming up, we'll get you ready for Week 6 across the National Football League. One big thing on every NFL game. That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Back in the day, before the explosion of I got to have this, Clemson built this, so Alabama's building this, Indiana, we got to have the world's biggest weight room, Purdue, we got to be bigger than Indiana. Before the locker room wars, the arms race of college sports, the theory used to be this, at least at Indiana University men's basketball. The theory at Indiana University men's basketball back in the day when they were winning championships was, look, we want you to be comfortable here. We're going to give you the best health care. We're going to give you the best weights. We're going to give you all that. But we don't want you hanging around the locker room. If you're coming to work, come to work. If you're coming to practice, that's work. Go out, get on the floor, get your workout in. Hey, we got a great training table for you. Go home, you're done. I think you will 1,000% tonight see a good football game. I do. Last week was a comedy of errors, both in terms of execution and in terms of participation. I don't think you're going to see that tonight. I think Justin Fields is getting better. And I'll be honest with you, when you look at quarterbacks across the league, according to the numbers, the fourth best quarterback is Carson Wentz. The one thing I wanted to ask Mike, and I should have, was why is it so easy to bash Carson Wentz? Like, it's just easy. His coach, we talked about it, had to walk back comments. All right. What? It's gotten so freaking easy to just simply say, it's Carson Wentz being Carson Wentz. The dude is throwing for a ton of yards. 9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Hey guys, it's Tomi. You can follow me on all my social media platforms at Tomi Lahren. And in case you missed my latest episode, here is what you missed. Big tech colludes with big government and big pharma and big BS to push leftist-friendly narratives. No duh, we know this. It's a tale as old as, well, the creation of social media. But the latest brazen and then apologetic offender is PayPal. Over the weekend, the company released its new acceptable use policy set to take effect on November 3rd, and it came with a not-so-thinly veiled threat update that stated users would be penalized for the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation or present a risk to user safety or well-being. And those in violation will be slapped with a $2,500 fine that will be taken directly from their PayPal account. Come again, PayPal? Did they really threaten to dip into the accounts of users if they, the self-appointed wardens of truth, fact, and science, deem certain content to be misinformation? Yeah, they sure as hell did. I've been spending the last several days of my shows, honestly, the last months of my shows, talking about big tech and talking about how they censor vaccine critical information, how they censor conservative voices, they censor Donald Trump, people that they just quite frankly don't like. What boggles my mind is that they tell us that they can't get rid of the child porn on the internet. They can't get rid of that. You can get rid of all the COVID misinformation, somebody being critical or explaining a very real world situation whether they had a vaccine side effect. That's deemed bad for the public well-being. But they're telling us they really can't cleanse all this filth from the internet?
They can. So they hide it under the guise of privacy and encryption, right? And they spend millions, if not billions of dollars lobbying Congress to protect the privacy of people. Meanwhile, they can see everything that we say. They know everything that we do. Every single thing that we think, we look at, we Google, we search is exploited and sold for advertisements and dollars. They know everything that we do. They even know your eye movement as you look at the phone and what makes you pay attention.
You guys know I always back the Blues, so tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern as I sit down with the founder and CEO of Street Cop Training, and you don't want to miss this.
This football weekend cannot fail us. That's how I feel right now. With all the great matchups in college, some really good games in the NFL that will all lead to Sunday afternoon in Kansas City with Chiefs and Bills. And then, of course, Sunday night, Philadelphia hosting Dallas. But surrounding that, Chad's a really good Sunday slate. And college football, wall to wall on Saturday is going to be awesome.
It's just no bad sports days right now this time of year in October, especially with Major League Baseball playoff action, postseason action going on right now. Great Saturday slate of games that we'll get to tomorrow with the top 10 games of the week. And Hutton, you've got something big on every NFL game.
Yeah, Seattle up 2-1. Sorry, I looked around the camera just to see the score. Is it in the sixth?
Seattle's up 2-1 in the top of the sixth, but the Mariners have the bases loaded with 2 outs against the Astros.
We'll keep everyone updated there. Yes, Chad. One big thing on every NFL game. So a weekly note to get us started. According to ESPN stats and info, since the NFL went to 8 divisions in 2002, there have only been 3 instances where a division has 3 4-win teams through the first 5 weeks. The 2020 AFC North, the 2008 NFC East, and the 2002 the AFC West. And now we have the NFC East that has also accomplished this feat. Prior to this season, you had the favorites in the NFC, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, and Los Angeles with the Rams. They can still be in the mix. Right now, those three teams are combined 8-7. And right now, you have NFC East that is smoking everyone.
Yes.
And those 3 teams I'm talking about, Tampa, Green Bay, LA, they are combined 1-2 against the NFC East. Bye weeks this week for the Titans, Raiders, Lions, and Texans. Here we go. Thursday Night Football. Commanders are in Chicago taking on the Bears. Brian Robinson is your starting running back. The man was shot twice in the leg in the preseason. He starts tonight for Washington. Carson Wentz is 6-0 on Thursdays in his NFL career. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But Wentz is taking sacks with Washington. He's turning the football over. Offense was 1 for 11 on third down last Sunday. Are we on Taylor Heineke watch? Are we on Heineke alert on Thursday Night Football? Maybe not.
We're on high Nike alert.
Yeah, maybe it's like an orange, not red. Maybe it's orange. But going into week 7, perhaps.
Threat level
Perhaps
midnight.
we see it. Per Action Network. So right now the over-under is at 38 points. If the over-under closes at 37.5 or less, a combined score tonight on Thursday Night Football, it will be the lowest total for a Thursday Night Football game since 2018 when the Titans played the Jags. That game closed at 36.5 total points. Titans won that game 30-9, which means the game went over miraculously.
Derrick Henry had a big game in that one, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's
Seems like one of those
par
games.
for the course when he plays Jacksonville. Not exactly compelling football to tune into, but at least they're telling us that up front, unlike last week. Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas out again for Washington. 49ers and Falcons get us started on Sunday's slate. The 49ers have been in West Virginia all week. They stayed in West Virginia after beating Carolina. They're staying on the East Coast, and then they'll be in Atlanta on Saturday. And Nick Bosa, will he be there? He's got a groin injury. He's on the injury report. After 4 games, he led the NFL in sacks with 6, quarterback hits, and depending on which website you're looking at, he's got 16 of those. I look at NFL Jesus on this. He also has been credited with 22 pressures or 30 pressures, depending if you look at Pro Football Focus or a different site. I look at Pro Football Focus. He has 30. Whichever organization you trust more, doesn't matter, because Bosa is leading the NFL with either 30 or 22. He's that dominant. Will he play? If not, this is a grinded-out type game for the Falcons, where they play tough. They were screwed over last week in Tampa, where they felt they had a chance to win, and we saw the roughing the passer in quotations against Brady. Nonetheless, the 49ers are the better team, and they have the best player if Bosa plays.
Hutton, what you're saying is this Bosa guy's pretty good.
That's
what I'm hearing.
He's legit.
Statistically, he's pretty good.
He's going to reset the bar for pay for defensive players, I feel. Patriots, they're in Cleveland. The Patriots can get back to 500 with a win, and it is Bailey Zappi again at quarterback for New England. According to NFL research, the Patriots are 5-0 under Bill Belichick with quarterbacks who were drafted outside of the first round making their first starts. Zappi did that last week.
Stat.
The rest of the league with quarterbacks drafted outside of the first round making their first starts, 30-80. And Belichick is 5-0.
The man knows how to mold greatness out of a late round quarterback pick. But what he really knows how to do in these that you're not showing with that stat necessarily, not that you're not showing, it doesn't show. He's great at getting a defense ready to help support that player in his first start.
Yeah, I mean, they went to more of a spread style, and they had a pro-style quarterback with Mac Jones. Zappi's the opposite based on what we've seen in college and through high school with his numbers. Belichick, by the way, is going for win number 324 overall, and that's going to tie him with a win, would tie him with George Halas for the second most all-time wins for NFL head coaches, behind only Don Shula, who has 347. Jets at Packers. Green Bay back from London. The Jets coming off a big win against the Dolphins. Green Bay is 3-2 overall going into Week 6. That's the worst record for Matt LaFleur since he took over through 5 games as head coach. The Jets have 7 interceptions entering Week 6. They had 7 all year last season. And that's due in large part to some great young players on both sides of the football with their overall play right now.
And Hutton immediately remorseful of his decision to eliminate the Jets from playoff contention.
Yes.
I think pretty quickly you were remorseful of that.
I've told them the GTFO, and now I wish I could call them. And
you wanted to GTFI to get in.
I want to drunk dial them now.
Get back in, yes.
Jags at Colts.
1 a.m.
So far this season, Matt Ryan has fumbled 11 times. Not in 17 games, in 5 games. He is on pace. If he plays in every game, he is on pace for 37 fumbles. The current record for quarterback fumbles in a single season is 23.
Wow.
He already has 11. By the way, Kerry Collins and Dante Culpepper are tied with 23 fumbles each. Does he get 37? Probably not. Could he get 24? Oh, yeah. The guy has a major issue this year with his offensive line and the pressure he's facing. Jerome Boger is also the white hat in this, so expect a very muddy, disorganized game.
Expect chaos.
Yes.
That's also not the record Matt Ryan was hoping to chase when he got to Indy. The fumbles
I'm
record.
staying away from this game in my upset picks tomorrow because the home team has won 10 straight games in this series. Vikings and Dolphins. The Vikings are winning close games this year. They did not win close games last year. That's the difference in the perception of the team this year. Kirk Cousins, he completed his first 17 passes last week. That is a Minnesota franchise record. There are those that would say, like Clark Judge, he would argue that is a sign that it's never been easier to play quarterback in the National Football League. The fact that Kirk Cousins completed 17 straight passes. The Dolphins, they took out the ping pong tables. Armando Salguero giving us that tidbit. Hoping that it would give more focus on game prep. How about focusing on getting the guy who didn't have a concussion out of concussion protocol and allowing your backup quarterback to play? That would be my advice over ping pong.
I only understand removing that if that independent neurologist was playing ping pong when all this went down. That's a reason to remove the ping pong tables. You got to get that guy away from the ping pong tables.
The Vikings defense allowing nearly 370 yards per game. That puts them in the bottom half of the league as they take on the Dolphins this week in South Beach. Saints are hosting the Bengals. This is going to be a cool atmosphere. Joe Burrow is back in Louisiana on Sunday. Jamar Chase back in Louisiana on Sunday. Andy Dalton's facing the team that drafted him in Cincinnati. Eli Apple is also returning to New Orleans. Eli Apple, who was talking trash on social media back in January of this year when he said that New Orleans was the dirtiest and smelliest of any city or fan base for a team he's played for. So when Cooper Kupp shredded him in the Super Bowl last year, an entire city of New Orleans jumped all over him on social media.
Rise up, Nola.
Get ready for a scene between those two, and maybe Eli Apple's mother will be in attendance as well. She speaks for him.
To his defense, though, New Orleans is an extremely smelly place, just naturally.
Well, he said some other things.
If you're in the French Quarter,
he also said they were the worst fan base.
Very, very smelly. So that's actually an objective fact.
He's not the worst. I think he tied them with the Giants.
To say a fan base smells is over the line. That's where I draw the line. But if you say that New Orleans, in fact, is the smelliest place he's been, that tracks. So I'm gonna give him that one.
Bengals have lost 3 tough games in the final seconds recently, and they now are on their second straight week on the road as they face New Orleans, and it's practically a pick'em. Cincinnati's favored by 1.5 on the road in this game. Giants are the underdog as they return home. After beating the Packers, they now host Baltimore. This is a tough week for them because they're coming back from London without the bye. That's their choice. We saw it last week too. And they're now hosting Baltimore, who needs to kind of keep track with some of the other top teams in the AFC record-wise. And Lamar Jackson's looking to get back on track as well. He's been playing well, but some games have been getting out of his hand, or he's been throwing some picks late. Brian Daboll. He's the early front-runner for Coach of the Year, though. And he will be the talk of the league if he pulls the upset here, not only because of the fact that they're coming back from London and it's just kind of a weird transition as you host Baltimore, but also because he hired Wink Martindale after Baltimore fired Wink Martindale. The Ravens' defense has not been good. They've been allowing plenty of yards through the air. And meanwhile, the Giants' defense it doesn't matter who's playing for them. They've been pretty good. The difference, though, Chad, Baltimore was minus 11 in turnover margin last year. And right now, through 5 games, they have a plus 5 turnover differential. That's why they're winning versus last year's struggles. And, they're getting more takeaways even without Martindale there.
Yeah, defense has been bad, but opportunistic, and that's what's giving them some wins.
8 interceptions already this season for Baltimore. Steelers hosting the Bucks. Brady and company going on the road, as we will see Kenny Pickett's first start at home for Pittsburgh. Last 2 weeks, Tom Brady has attempted 104 passes. The Bucs, in the same amount of time, they have 29 combined carries. 104 passes, 29 carries. And in those 104 pass attempts, Brady has only been sacked once.
Wow.
That's crazy. Now, he was gifted a penalty last week, and he would admit that. Since 2016, Brady is 5-2 when he throws 50 or more passes in a game. The rest of the NFL quarterbacks in that same time frame from 2016 to now, again, he's 5-2. NFL quarterbacks, 21, 105, and 4 when a QB passes more than 50 times in a game. You don't win unless you're Tom Brady.
Brady's response when asked about that penalty for the roughing the passer was perfect. He said, I don't throw flags, I throw tablets. So I can't speak to the flag, which was great.
Let me emphasize the point one more time, though, on that stat. Let's go just active quarterbacks for right now. NFL research tells us among all active quarterbacks, Brady, 23 wins when he attempts more than 50 passes in a game. No other active quarterback right now has more than 5 wins whenever they attempt 50 or more passes in a game. It just doesn't happen. He gets it done somehow. Even if you think that he's lost a step or, he's done, this team is somehow pulling out wins. It's an interesting game on the road. They're favored by 8.5, I believe, on the road in Pittsburgh. So not the double-digit underdog for Tomlin. Let's go to L.A., shall we?
Let's do it.
L.A. Rams, home again, this time hosting the Carolina Panthers. This is a must-win. This game is a must-win for L.A. Their upcoming schedule is brutal. And now you look at, you got Cooper Kupp and who else? That's their issue. Traditionally, over the past 20 years of the league, 32 teams have fired their coach in season. Matt Rule's out now, and Steve Wilkes is the interim coach in Carolina. So that's happened 32 times in season over the last 20 years. Those teams have gone 15-17 straight up, or 17-15 against the spread in the following game after they fired their head coach. So it's basically 50-50 on how a certain team responds. And this is not a Rams team that is anywhere close to what we saw a year ago. They're allowing a ton of hits on Stafford. He's been sacked 21 times. He has more interceptions than touchdowns. He has 7 picks, 5 touchdown passes. It's rough. And that by the way, is over his last 3 starts. So can Carolina shock everyone? Can Steve Wilkes win the job this week, Chad?
No, he cannot. Can he win it by the end of the season? I'm probably also going to say no, he cannot.
No, he cannot. Cardinals on the road in Seattle. The Mariners, if they host a game on Sunday, we may know that sooner rather than later based on this. It's a best of 5, and Houston just took the lead, I believe, Chad. You can see it.
Yeah, it's maybe a 2-run home run for Houston. They lead 3-2 right now.
So we
that's
don't
what the
know.
scoreboard
We won't
is telling
know
me.
if Seattle is hosting a game or not on Sunday. But if they do, they're going to move this kickoff between the Cardinals and Seahawks back 90 minutes. Right now it's 4:05 Eastern.
Jordan Alvarez with a home run.
Okay.
Michael McKenry's guy.
Yeah. They will move kickoff for Seattle and Arizona to 5:35 Eastern. Geno Smith, he's completing a league best 75% of his passes and 1,300 yards passing as I do this math. Yeah, 1,300 and 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Fantastic play. Arizona's got to win for Cliff Kingsbury's sake, I think. This is a big game for them within the division. Late afternoon kickoffs. Bills and Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog for the first time in his 42 career starts at Arrowhead Stadium. In those, this is unprecedented. When he is an underdog, he's 7-0-1 against the spread for his career. He's not an underdog often. He's never been an underdog at home. He is this week as Josh Allen and the Bills visit. And we know that Josh Allen's crazy first half was insane. But look at it through the lens of Gabriel Davis in the first half against Pittsburgh last week. 3 catches, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That means he averaged 57 yards per catch through the first 2 quarters. Bills after this go into the bye week, and the Chiefs will head to San Francisco. Sunday Night Football, Cowboys are headed to Philly to take on the Eagles. Through 5 games, the unbeaten Eagles, they have 58 explosive plays. I'm tallying that based on 15 yards or more offensively. They lead the league, 58 of those. And their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, he leads the league. He's number 1. He has 42 explosive plays. This is a really good Dallas defense, too. This is a great matchup.
Is it weird that I'm almost in more anticipation of this game than I am Bills-Chiefs?
I mean, I
love this matchup.
I need to know about Micah Parsons. He strained his groin in the first quarter last week in L.A. Now, he finished with 2 sacks and a forced fumble on the final drive against Stafford. But I need to know where he is on his – is he 100%? Is he 90%? Maybe for those that would say he's the best player, and I think he's the best player on defense right now, maybe it doesn't matter. This guy is fun to watch, and I can't wait to see him go up against Jalen Hurts and the momentum that this offense has. The Cowboys, they've allowed just 72 points. That's behind only San Francisco and Buffalo. San Fran and Buffalo have allowed 61 each. Eagles also go into the bye, just like Buffalo, after this game. Dallas will host Detroit. The Lions are coming off of their bye week. Monday Night Football, Broncos are coming off that horrendous game. If they score a touchdown, it'll be a better one here in Los Angeles. They are taking on the Chargers in the division. Chargers back home after 2 straight wins on the road. Russell Wilson, his completion percentage, 59%. Let's compare that. What did I say for Geno Smith? He's completing 75% of his passes. Russell Wilson, 59%, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The Chargers defense, though, they've allowed 29 points per game on average over the last 4 weeks. So if Denver's going to get back on track, this is a Chargers defense that will let you do that. I just don't think it's going to happen. Chad, not because of Russell Wilson, but who's their coach?
Nathaniel Hackett. He's one and done. I don't know if you've heard this from me yet, but he is definitely going to be a one and done coach. But I will say this in the defense of Nathaniel Hackett. A lot of what I'm seeing with the Broncos is a Russell Wilson problem. He's a big part of the problem too, Hackett. But in terms of that inaccuracy, that completion percentage at 59%, that's a lot to do with Russell Wilson. Some to do with Hackett also in the offense, but Wilson's not been good.
That is one big thing on every NFL game, or at least one thing on every NFL game.
Yeah.
We'll give you our upset picks, and we'll look at we'll narrow this down to like 5, 6 really good games for tomorrow's show, as well as we look at Sunday and Monday.
What I hope, Hutton, is that the listener or viewer takes from the multiple things you give them on every game, takes one big thing away. So when we say one big thing on the NFL weekend, what we mean is you're going to take away one big nugget off of that list.
Maybe it helps you as you prepare for either fantasy or your big gambling weekend, or you're just a massive fan like us, and
you just want to know.
You want to know more than touchdown passes by a quarterback, or rushing yards by the rookie running back.
A wise man once said, "Knowledge is power," and that's a powerful message. And that knowledge that we just gave you, that Hutton gave you, is very powerful. What I'm trying to say is, children are the future. Hutton.
More knowledge.
Let them
knowledge
lead
next.
the way.
As we get into Thursday Night Football, we'll give you our picks through OutKick.com/bet. That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, I'm David Hookstead, host of American Joyride, a podcast where we shine a spotlight on patriotism and American exceptionalism. Take a look.
This is something, again, that I really like to ask military guys because I feel like they have unique perspectives, sometimes that surprise people. But most importantly, in my opinion, anyone who's sacrificed on any level tends to be very grateful, or more grateful than just your average person. So when you hear people maybe say that America is a terrible place, or that we're an evil country full of evil people, do you kind of cringe when you hear that? Like, what's your reaction when you turn on the news and it's just nonstop negativity around the clock about how awful this place is?
Well, I actually don't turn on the news anymore because of that.
Smart.
It's one, not true. And it's unbelievably toxic how that mindset and hearing it all the time. Even if one, you believe it, then you go around believing that about your own nation all the time. Like, that's a horrible way to feel about who you is. They're not leaving, right? They're not finding a more noble country to go to. They're just staying here, and they're sulking, and they're spreading this horrible idea about how shameful we should all feel all the time. And I don't want to live that way, but I don't believe it. And so listening to it just pisses me off. I don't think that anyone is really able to say that with a straight face unless they have paid no attention to world history.
Right.
Like, it takes a real level of ignorance of history to say that America is unique in its cruelty. Like, it's just absurd. It's really, we're not void of it, but we are certainly not unique in it. I went on a bender around the time I went to Naked and Afraid because I felt like I could use these books to harness a better perspective and get me through the suffering that I anticipated. And they were recommendations by Jordan Peterson, who I like to, listen to a lot of the things he says. He's a very interesting person as well. But I read The Gulag Archipelago. I read Mao's Famine, Unit 731.
The old Japanese torture unit.
Oh, yeah. I read The Making of, what was it? It was another German book about the psychology of how they got these German policemen to do murders who were just regular cops.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. And it's about how, like, none of them opted out of it. Like, they just all were okay. I know the book you're referring to.
Yeah, man. And sort of the peer pressure involved, or the, how that happens. I read all of those books, and I'll be honest, it probably took me 3 or 4 months to get over them. Like, Unit 731 with the Japanese torture camps was specifically difficult. The rape of Nanking, that was another one. Holy hell. Like, how could you look at America and honestly believe, like, yes, we had slavery, but slavery was brought here because it was everywhere else, right? Like, this was the place everyone was going. We didn't invent it here, but we did get rid of it. And we killed a whole lot of people to do that. And I think that the people that say that, one, are either trying to be trendy and different, and they just don't understand what the hell they're saying.
Make sure to catch every single episode of American Joyride at OutKick.com.
Thursday night football, Washington and Chicago. The Bears are going with their color rush. They've got the orange helmets. I think they look cool. I don't know if they're going to be ripped or not. They've got this orange alternate helmet, and the uniforms are at least the jerseys are the same color. I think they're going white pants, which is the right call.
Here's what I think about this alternate uniform. I love the Bears' normal uniform so much that it's going to be hard to see this for me.
Yeah.
But I saw the helmet. You showed me a picture of it, Hutton. I don't hate it, but their normal uniform's just so much better. With the navy and the navy helmet with the orange C. So much better.
I like the fact that you can now mess with the helmet as well as the jersey, which is a
I
new
like
thing
that too.
Let's get our picks in. OutKick.com/bet is where you can make your bet, make your picks through DraftKings. Again, that's OutKick.com/bet. Chad, I'm going with Carson Wentz at having at least one interception. Right now, the over/under is 0.5. I don't trust him, especially if the game's on the line. So I'm taking the over there, and I'm taking the over on both kickers, whatever it ends up being. I think Cairo Santos is like 1.5 field goals. Give me the over there. And I'll take the over with Washington, too. I don't think this is a very high-scoring game. And because of that, I think one of these kickers is going to win the game, and they're going to be kicking a lot. Maybe one of these kickers loses a game. But I'm taking the makes, and I think it is a field goal fest that not many of us want to watch.
You were going very in-depth with the interception and the field goals. I like that. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I think the Bears are going to win at home tonight. They're a 1-point underdog at home. Give me Bears money line, and to do that, it's not going to be a lot of Justin Fields passing. Now, we haven't seen much of that in his career so far. David Montgomery, anytime touchdown tonight, plus 145 is the number. He has the highest odds to score a touchdown in this game of any other player, Commander or Bear. I'm giving David Montgomery anytime touchdown, Bears money line to win outright tonight against Washington.
So next week, I realize it's Thursday. I'm already previewing next week. Armando's going to be in New York for the NFL owners meetings. I asked him if Snyder's there, if he's not, if he's allowed to be there. Mark Maskey with the Washington Post tweets this out. Attorneys for the Commanders say Daniel Snyder is, quote, no longer under any NFL restriction, end quote, on his involvement in team operations. The league repeatedly has said that Snyder's ownership status remains unchanged from July 2021. Is this dude showing up at the league meetings next week?
I hope so.
Me too.
Especially after that report. Come on. I know Armando's hoping so.
His attorneys are saying that he's no longer under any NFL restrictions. I mean, clear the NFL can restrict him again with one statement, which is probably what we're in for here. Chad, we're in for a great weekend, and we kick it off early for everybody tomorrow in Friday's show live at Cool Beans in Knoxville, Tennessee and Alabama on Saturday. Great atmosphere on Rocky Top, and we will bring it to you live here on and across the OutKick Network. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you on your anticipation for this game? As you head back to your
14,
you head back to your alma mater.
14. I mean, this is the biggest stakes, biggest atmosphere I've been around in a long time in Knoxville for a game, especially against Alabama. With the history of that rivalry, everything else, this is through the roof excitement for Tennessee and Alabama fans in this game. Alabama fans may be sweating a little bit for the first time leading up to a Tennessee game in a long time, and Tennessee fans have a little bit of reason for optimism in this series for the first time in a long time. We're going to have a blast at Cool Beans tomorrow, an absolute staple in Knoxville, a bar that's been around for a while, people love, you know where it is. Come see us tomorrow. Going to be a great energy, great environment. Really looking forward to it. It feels like today's a Friday because we leave for Knoxville tomorrow. So we do have another show tomorrow.
Oh.
It's going to be a big one. Tony Vitello, Tennessee head baseball coach, is going to join us live.
Trey Wallace will be there too.
Yeah.
From OutKick. He's covering the game for OutKick.com. Biggest game in the country, biggest game in the SEC. OutKick's got you covered both with 360 and on the site. Hope you'll join us either in person if you're there or across the OutKick Network, this great radio station, or streaming live at OutKick.com. Catch you tomorrow. Friday edition starts at 2 Central, 3 Eastern on OutKick 360.